Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. First order of business is we have our consent agenda posted, which are the minutes from the September 11th, 2025 meeting, as well as the oaths, bills, and payroll. Any questions on the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept?
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Motion made by Elaine,
Second.
seconded by Janine. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Okay, so I'll give you a chance. I just didn't catch it. So
Louder from over here.
that's unanimous. It's off to a good start. So our first opportunity for interested citizens. So if there's anybody with us this evening, either in person or on Zoom, there's a second opportunity towards the end of tonight's meeting.
Can I may say something very quickly?
Sure.
And interested citizens, and I am not speaking for the school committee. I'm speaking for myself as a citizen and a member of the school community.
State your address for the record.
Okay, Janine Wood, 12 Christina Street. I want to acknowledge that in the recent past, there has been communication and actions that have happened within the school community and from some leadership that have been unnerving to members of our community. I want to acknowledge that our community includes a lot of individuals from many different backgrounds. And I task us all, myself included, the community and our leadership, with thinking through our actions and stopping and understanding the moment we live in. We live in a very difficult time period. We live in a very difficult communication, political, and social environment right now. And we make mistakes because we're all human beings. So I'm tasking myself and those of us in leadership with doing better. Just to explain, I had people reach out to me. I think High Five, I'm not sure what the whole was, unnerved a couple of families. And I sat a minute and I thought, I remembered back when I was a single mom, I was working in Andover. If I had driven my student, and I probably would not have read the newsletters and been up to date on what was happening. And if I had driven up and seen all the police officers in front of the school, I would have had heart failure. And then it would have been fine. And it's a lovely event. And I understand everybody meant well. But when people said they were unnerved, I thought a minute and I said, yeah, I see that. So to those in our community who have struggled recently, I want to say I see you, and we are all going to do better. And come join us and share your stories and help us do better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else with us this evening? Absolutely. Have your name and address for the record, please. Thank you.
Hello, my name is David Canada, 11 Stagecoach Road. Romans 12. As much as it is within our power, live with peace with everyone. At the last meeting, 3 people spoke starkly opposed to the email that was sent regarding the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The first began expressing her disgust for it. The next began expressing she and a group of others were very upset by it. Well, I must say, I am also upset, and I am disgusted by anyone who would say or believe that. I am disgusted listening. I was disgusted listening and watching you, the superintendent, get berated by that drivel for 5 minutes. To ensure we all have the right context, that email contained 8 sentences. 8. And for 5 minutes, you were berated that it was disgusting that Littleton Schools condemns political violence. Disgusting that Littleton Schools condemns all violence in the community and schools. Disgusting that every individual deserves to express their views without fear of harm. Disgusting that Littleton School's mission is to model respect for differing viewpoints and fostering civil discourse. Disgusting? I'm sorry. No. Anyone who feels that email is disgusting or upsetting is evil. As much as it is within your power, live in peace with everyone. See, here's the thing with that. It's not within my power to violate the core principles which I believe are true, as I hope you hold true. Core principles that define morality, which come from only one place, the Bible. So when someone insists that the only way that we can live in peace with each other is that I must abandon those things that are core to my existence, my answer is no. And that's what's happening here. Romans 12 instructs us not to repay evil with evil, rather repay evil with kindness. Tolerance is not kindness. Compromising God's moral principles to make those who perpetuate evil feel comfortable is not kindness. It is not incumbent on me or you to make other people feel comfortable. You were told it was a political statement. It was not. You were told it was divisive. It was not. You were told it was a mistake. It was not. The only mistake was the follow-up, tripping over yourself, apologizing for condemning violence and trying to model civil discourse. The third speaker, who I believe is a selectman, appeared to be visibly shaken while implying there was absolutely no reason to have sent the email and demanded there be consequences. A poll just came out that showed 30% of young adults believe it is justified to resort to violence in order to achieve your goals. Those are the consequences of compromising when some people don't like to hear the truth. 30% of young people, those are people coming out of school systems like Littleton Public Schools. So yes, I do believe not only was it warranted, but it was appropriate for the original email condemning political violence and all violence. No apology necessary. Thank you.
Any words? Anybody else? Virtual. Okay. Perfect. All right, we'll close that portion of interested citizens and we'll move into our recognition portion of the evening. Student representative report. Please take it away.
Good evening, everyone. I have a few updates from the schools. Let's start with Shaker Lane. Shaker Lane had a great month getting back into the swing of things related to school, learning routines, beginning academics, and making new friends. Shaker Lane also had their first community meeting this month, focusing on the meaning of heart and kicking off their first fun run, which will take place on October 17th. They also have their family book fair night coming up on October 8th, where they will bring back the much enjoyed masked reader experience. Transitioning into Russell Street School had a very successful back to school night. It was great to welcome families to our school and share all the exciting things to expect this year. Fifth graders were treated to an instrument demonstration so they could hear all the options they have this year in fifth grade band. Instruments are scheduled to be delivered this week with sectional rehearsals scheduled to start soon. Students are wrapping up their beginning of the year benchmark assessments over the next week. We look forward to tracking student growth and progression throughout the year. Now, Littleton Middle School took their first math test of the year this week, and it was great to see the students working hard to do their best. Sixth grade will have its first kids' night out of the year on Friday, October 3rd from 6 to 8 p.m. The event is hosted by Littleton Middle School's PTA and will have games, food, music, and even a bouncy obstacle course. Now, Littleton High School. On Tuesday, September 23rd, the Guidance Department hosted a senior college playing night at LHS. It is essentially the nuts and bolts of the college application process presented to parents and guardians of the class of 2026. Our school counselors informed them on the process from the beginning to the end and were available for questions at the end. And department meetings 2:45 for LHS are on October 8th. Thank you.
Excellent. Well done.
Good job.
So much. I know our student representatives are often busy with other activities, but again, for as long as you stay at the meeting, feel free to participate in the conversation. Moving on to our second piece of recognition, that is National Merit Scholarship Program. Principal John Harrington will announce the seniors that were named as committed students in the 2026 National Merit Scholarship Program.
Hey everyone, I'm happy to announce today that seniors Elena Gerton, Evan Motandre, Siddharth Padmati, and Arya Waxunder were named as commended students in the 2026 National Merit Scholarship Program. The commended students throughout the country are recognized for their outstanding performance on the 2024 preliminary or PSATs, I'll just get that short, and their exceptional academic performance. And there's a quote here from the National Merit Fellowship spokesperson. Those being named commended students have demonstrated outstanding potential for academic success. We hope this recognition will help broaden their educational opportunities and encourage them as they continue their pursuit of academic success. So congratulations again to Elena, Evan, and Siddharth, Arya for their fine performance on PSAT. Excellent. And I just have one additional recognition that just came in today, if I may.
Sure,
From the Special Olympics, recognizing Littleton High School, and I'll just read the first paragraph from the letter from the Vice President of Special Olympics. Congratulations on reaching unified champion school status for 24-25 year. And this is in celebration of all the things we did last school year. Your school community has successfully accomplished this by implementing unified sports, inclusive youth leadership opportunities, and a whole school engagement. These rich opportunities are leading to meaningful change and creating a socially inclusive school that supports and engages all learners. So I just wanted to thank and express my appreciation for all the staff that are involved with this unified sports program, particularly Mike Lynn, Eric Arnold, and Dr. Tracy Turner, who have been instrumental in the success of this program throughout many years. And we received a banner to showcase in school lobby. So I just wanted to announce that, share that with you guys. Just received it this afternoon. So
Congratulations.
Yeah, well done.
Brilliant.
Exciting.
Right. You like doing anything?
I do.
You do, okay.
You bet.
Take it away.
I'm really proud, and you know this already, but the community doesn't, that we were nominated for, our middle school was nominated for the Blue Ribbon School Award. That's the highest nomination and achievement a school can receive within this nation. I have some good news from the Department of Education. As a result of the Federal Department of Education closing doors, so to speak, to this program, they are going to move forward with some type of recognition. So I'm so super excited about that because, as I said many, many times, most people in communities never see that kind of recognition during their existence as a school committee member, superintendent, or principal, etc. But I really feel it's necessary to give recognition where it's deserved. The middle school received that recognition because of all of the hard work that our staff and families did from pre-K to grade 8. You do not become a blue ribbon school being an island unto yourself. Our students develop foundational skills from the first day they enter school, and they continue to build those skills along the way and build a solid foundation. That type of education allows us to receive the recognition that we did. So it's a proud moment for me as your superintendent. All of our 3 schools are well deserving of celebrating this award. And I'm hoping Desi does it with the right style as well, because it's something that may not happen again. Hopefully it does.
Excellent. How about this? If they fail to do it with the right style, we'll do it ourselves.
We'll do it with style.
We will, right? So
For sure.
Jason must be thrilled, as well as the rest of the LMS staff. So congratulations. We definitely want to celebrate that. All right, got a couple presentations this evening. The first of which is a redo. If at first you don't succeed, try again. So this is a revote for the FinCom seat. We had a candidate, which we heard from last school committee meeting. We voted to accept that candidate and appoint them to the financial committee, and the clerk has asked us to do this again and have it officially on our agenda, which we're happy to do. So I will make a motion that we elect Frederick Kingsley for the 2024-2027 FinCom seat.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Perfect, that's unanimous. Before we move on to our second presentation, I'll just pause and bring your attention to the top of tonight's agenda. It's something that we've been doing for a year or two now. Many of the presentations we like all of our presentations to at some point circle back to the district strategic plan. This evening, the focus is on standard 1, which is curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Align and enhance curriculum, instruction, and assessment to continuously improve student achievement. Tonight's essential question, we're going to be listening for tidbits along the way, is how can data be used to inform decisions about curriculum and instruction? And we will move on. So our second official presentation, really the first presentation, is going to be from Director of Teaching and Learning, Beth Steele, is going to give the NWEA MAP update, which is present the summary of the MAP growth testing results from the 2024-2025 school year. Welcome.
Thank you. All right, so tonight's presentation, we have it broken down into 5 different pieces. We'll go over what is MAP growth, just kind of a recap so we remind ourselves and ground ourselves in what it actually is. We'll talk about how it's scored. We'll talk about our actual data in 2 different ways. We'll talk about how we use the data and then some major takeaways. So with getting into the first piece of what is MAP growth. MAP growth is an interim assessment. So we give it 3 times a year. We give it in the fall, the winter, and the spring. It's adaptive to the students' responses. So that's opposite of, for example, the MCAS or SATs. That's a standardized assessment, right? Every student gets the exact same questions. This is an adaptive assessment, so it changes based on the student responses. You can see in the top image, the chart that is there, it has green check boxes and it has red check boxes. And so if we look from left to right, we can see that first green check box, the student got the answer correct. So the test gave that student a slightly harder question. The student got that answer correct, went and adapted to a slightly harder question, got that one wrong. So it's trying to really pinpoint. You can see the extreme on the left side. It starts to kind of even out as the assessment gets to the end, because then it's really pinpointing what that student knows and what that student is ready to learn next, meaning something they probably got wrong is something that they're ready to dive into. The MAP growth assessments provide us real-time data on student mastery and achievement on standards-based content. So it is aligned with our standards in Massachusetts. It identifies instructional level for each student independent of the enrolled grade level. And so if a student is performing really well, it'll ask them questions of harder and harder questions that may not be typical of the grade level that they're in, and vice versa. If a student is struggling, it will go to meet where content is that they are going to see some success. It also provides us longitudinal data based on an equal interval scale, which we will talk about, demonstrating academic growth over time. And so that's that bottom chart. That would just be one student's chart, and we are able to see their growth over time. And ideally, we're seeing just kind of an upward trajectory as they pass their years with us in doing MAP growth. So doing MAP growth really helps us with large scale changes, like changing in our curricular programs. So being able to see kind of how changes have happened with our elementary math program, for example. We'll be looking to see kind of how the reading is adapting in the K-5 with a new program. But I would say actually more importantly, it really helps at the student level to determine what a student knows and what a student is ready to learn. And so we won't see the student level benefits, right? We see the district level benefits at this point, which is really kind of those larger picture, larger ideas. MAP growth does help us ensure that students are growing academically, and it provides us with consistent data that we can go back to when we might have any questions or we might see any hiccups. We can really dig in to deeper levels to see kind of what's going on with that particular student in a particular content area. It really provides us with a centralized common data set, which is very helpful, both, as I said, individually for students, but also large scale. So scoring of the MAP growth assessments is measured on a RIT scale. And so it's an equal interval scale. You can think of it like feet and inches on a ruler, right? So we know typically an 8-year-old might be a certain height. We know that a second grader will typically perform at a certain level, but it's not necessarily restricted. Could be taller, could be shorter, right? A student could be performing at a higher level than a typical second grader or a lower level than a typical second grader. And so the RIT scale goes from about 100 to 300. So that's the range in which we will see our students scoring. What is interesting, and we mentioned this last year, was that NWEA was considering updating their norms. They try to do it every 5 years or so, and they have been able to do it every 5 years. There were norms that came out in 2015. They updated the norms in 2020. And then just now in 2025, this summer, they released new norms as well. And so on the next slide, you'll see the student achievement norms for reading and for math. Overall, what you'll see if you compare, and for your reference, the very last slide is the 2020 norms, just so that you can do a real comparison if you would like to. But the general gist is that the bell curve that you would see with the 2020 norms flattened and went to the left, which means that our students are scoring lower and more of them are scoring at the lower end of the range. And so we see this in these norms because the RIT score is lower, both at the entry level point, so at the fall score is a lower RIT score. And then when students are leaving the grade in the spring score for the 2025 norms, it is a lower score in comparison to 5 years ago. Now, what is important, and that if you're looking at just your students' data, the RIT didn't change. The RIT scale didn't change. Nothing about the RIT. So you can still compare your students' RIT score this year to how they did 3 years ago. What changed are the norms and the percentiles and the comparison. So it's the comparison pool that changed. And a few factors played into that. One was the pandemic and the learning loss that happened during the past 5 years. Another big piece is that there were a lot more students in the 2025 norm study. And so that changed the overall pool of where students were falling. And so what we have seen and what NWEA is informing us is that we, for example, you may have had a student that performed at the 50th percentile. This year, they might be performing at like the 51st, 52nd percentile. And it's because they might still be cuspy. And so it's a little tricky, and that's where going into independent students is really important. And so we'll see kind of globally that our students are doing very well. They're still growing. We're seeing exactly what we want to be seeing. Going to the student level is really important, especially when we're looking at kind of percentiles in doing that analysis. So if we look at the actual data, we're going to see 2 data stories this evening. The first of which is this slide and then upcoming the next couple of slides. And so in this data story, we are comparing different cohorts, but we're able to see typical grade level across multiple years. So this is comparing apples to oranges. You're not comparing the same cohort of students year over year. In these charts, you see on the left side, we have the grade and subject. We then have the fall to spring 22-23 RIT scores, the growth amount that they make in that school year, followed by the 23-24 school year, that year's growth, followed by the 2020 norms. Leaving the 2020 norms in there in order to show that during those years, we did compare them to those norms, and it's important to see that. Then we have the 24-25 school year just last year with the growth and with the updated norms. So also by color, you can see the blue is following 2020 norms and the yellow is following 2025 norms. With this, you can see, and you're going to be able to see it across the board, is that in comparison to the 2025 norms, we are above the national norms at all of our grade levels. What is also interesting, and I say this cautiously because we are not necessarily supposed to make comparisons, but you are able to see that we also, even though the 2020 norms were higher, our students are still performing and achieving higher than the 2020 norms. And so if we were to compare ours to previous norms, we're still achieving higher at those levels as well. We can go to the next slide and we see the Russell Street data. It's the same chart setup. Again, we're above the 2025 norms as well as the 2020 norms. And what's interesting here, and this is what is an indicator that I look for with regards to programmatic changes, is that in looking at the MAP growth math scores, we have reached a point where we are actually exceeding beyond where our students typically were with regards to RIT score pre-pandemic. And so in the 2018-2019 year, which was the last final school year that we had MAP growth in all 3 sessions, third grade math has increased by 5.2%, 5.2 points, fourth grade math by 5.8 points, and fifth grade math by 2.5 points. So we are seeing that our students are back to pre-pandemic and excelling above pre-pandemic levels, which is really nice to see. Also, to me, as an indicator, to us as an indicator, that the math program changes that we made have been successful, and that we need to continue to keep an eye on that to ensure that this growth still continues for moving forward. So it's something that I am very proud. Our teachers have worked really hard, our students have worked really hard to be able to get to this position, and we want to make sure that we're keeping an eye on it as we continue to move forward and our focus starts to shift, which we'll talk about during the curriculum review conversation a little bit later tonight. The next slide you have is the middle school, so grade 6, 7, 8. Again, above the norms when you're looking at this data. If we're looking, again, grade 6, they did have 2 years of our new Into Math program. And so looking at their growth, they were above pre-pandemic at 2.2 points. We've also made some strides in ELA with going pre-pandemic scores as well. And so we're happy to see kind of that trajectory going upwards as we move forward and our students continuing to grow against themselves and against previous cohorts, which is really nice. Again, you're comparing apples to oranges, so it's with a grain of salt that we make these statements, but if we're continuing to see them year over year, it's starting to create that trend. Lastly, we have the high school. High school, again, they only take grade 9, the reading assessment. Our students consistently score very high. And so this at the student level is very helpful to look at. So our teachers can dig in and see specifically what skills the students really need support with. So looking at this from the district level, it looks a little bland, which is why the student level, they're able to dig in a lot more and get a lot more information out of it. What is interesting, because we are doing a curriculum review this year of our 6 to 12 curriculum with ELA, it will be interesting to see, does it make sense to continue doing the grade 9 reading math growth? Is there something better out there that's going to give us more detailed information that's going to support what we're doing? Is there something that might be aligned with a future resource that we choose to bring in? Those questions are kind of all out on the table with regards to grade 9 reading math growth. We now shift into the second data story. And this is comparing apples to apples. So this, we're looking at the same cohort over time as they grow through Littleton Public Schools. And so we will see all the way from our current 10th graders down to our current 3rd graders. And so on this graph, you see their RIT score on the left side, and then the school year on the horizontal axis there. And what we're seeing, typically what we want to see is that upward trajectory line of our students improving year over year. One thing that is important to note on these graphs is that anything previous to the 24-25 school year for the national norm lines is 2020 norm data, because during those years we were comparing to that norm data and we want to hold true to that information. Starting at 24-25, you start to see the new norms. I think this chart is particularly interesting because you see that significant dip in the national norm for reading, for example, going from the 8th grade to the 9th grade. When we look at the 2025 norm data, if you're comparing 8th to 9th grade, it's not that significant of a dip. It's only 1 point difference, but it's because we're comparing the 2020 8th grade data to the 2025 9th grade norm. And so there's a more significant dip at the national norm level. However, all that being said, our line is going upwards, and that's the piece that we really want to make sure that we're seeing. The next slide is our current 9th graders. Again, we're seeing very nice upward trajectory of our lines. When we're looking at ours are the blue for reading, red for math. You can flip to the next one.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good, all good. This is the 8th grade, so current 7th graders. Again, I'm just gonna keep repeating, it's the nice upward trajectory. We're able to kind of, you can pinpoint like, ooh, what's going on there? Let's take a look at that. But these overall look very nice when we're looking at them. The next one, class of 2031, excuse me, is our 7th graders. So it's their 5 years worth of data. And then we have our 6th graders who have their 4 years of data. Our 5th graders, their 3 years of data, all looking very nice with the, and our current 4th graders with their 2 years of data that is beautifully kind of following the trends here at an appropriate way. And then we have our last one, which are just our dots at this point in time with our current 3rd graders who have only taken it once. And so we'll be looking to see that trend that we have seen for all of our other grades as they move forward. Using of this data, as I said at the beginning, the use of this data it really varies depending on who's looking at it and how we're looking at it, right? I can look at it from a district level and looking at program curriculum changes, data, how's our growth, where are we growing, where is our growth starting to maybe plateau, what do we need to do, why is that happening? And it's not just curricular changes I mentioned into math, right? But it's also our teaching and learning practices, right? It's our implementation of UDL. Are we trying to eliminate the barriers? Are our students getting a voice in their curriculum to be invested and engaged in what they're learning? At the teacher level, there's also several ways to use the data, and I have it listed out to kind of 4 different buckets here. Our teachers use it for instructional planning purposes and for differentiation in creating small groups, in reworking their lessons. For student support intervention, they determine eligibility. For example, for Title I, they use this data for figuring out who might need a little bit of support there. They use it for creating their WIN groups. Progress monitoring, it's a good way for us to kind of see how students are continuing on. It's interesting. Lynn and I will sometimes have questions where we'll pull up and we'll be like, what's going on here? And then in conversation, we're able to say, oh, I think this happened, or we know this about this particular student, and that is kind of what's demonstrating that hiccup. It's nice because we're a small district and we really do know our students. And if we don't have direct information, we have a conversation with someone that does to be able to figure out what's going on and seeing if there is a hiccup, why that hiccup might be there. And then lastly, what I really appreciate about our use of this is building student agency and being able to have conversations with our students about their score and how they're doing, and ensuring that they are kind of building their own academic stamina and their ability to take risks and promoting their own kind of self-awareness and what they need. And it really does involve, and it can incorporate this level of metacognition and reflection that we're trying to make sure that gets built in, so that way it's a good practice and it allows us to really kind of let the learning sink in. So with regards to that, some major takeaways for our math growth for this year is that our students are continuing to grow. Really pleased to see the growth that our students are making and the strides that they're making over the past several years. We're continuing to see more of a return to pre-pandemic scores and actually exceeding the pre-pandemic scores. So as I mentioned, last year we had 4 areas in which we were beating our pre-pandemic scores. This year we have 6 areas in which we're beating our pre-pandemic scores. And so that's a nice feature to be able to see. And then lastly, I will say that we continually to thoughtfully use the data to discuss teaching and learning on both small and large scales. And just as our student rep said, the schools are just finishing up. It's open through next week, our fall data window. And just this week I had a conversation with a teacher and she was, the student's taking a little bit of time on it and whatnot. I said, okay, well, let's do one more session tomorrow, see how, what number they get to, how it goes and all this. Happened to be in the school that next day and I caught the teacher in the hallway and the student finished the assessment and was so beyond proud of themselves for finishing the assessment. And the teacher and I had conversations. I'm like, well, I don't want to, a ton of learning time to be spent on taking an assessment when we can get that data because they've done enough of the assessment and all of this, right? So there's a little bit of like, well, what do we do if, and we didn't have to even get there. And the amount of pride that that student felt, the teacher was just really happy, that student was able to finish it. And so that's where we're talking about student agency and risk taking. The student was able to take that into their own control and they finished it. And the amount of pride that they felt was worth kind of going through that process for that student, even though it was long for that student. But it was worth him being able to do that. So happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Lovely. Cool. Anybody, any comments or questions? Dina, you wanna start? You're good?
Yeah, this was really.
Janine?
So I guess I kind of at a wide range. It feels like you were talking about as a teaching tool, this is so valuable. Like teachers are really able to get, and I love the idea of teachers understanding where their students are. And this is a great tool for that. But it sounded like on a macro level, we're working on teasing out like data that really means something all the time. And I just wonder, are there reporting tools that maybe if we kept this for the teachers, they were able to, help use it in their guidance. But if there was another macro tool, or maybe there's another macro tool that the state uses, would that be something are you looking at? It sounds like you're looking into that, and I just wanted to give you support with that.
I think we're looking into it for the 9th graders to
Okay.
make sure that they are having an assessment that is challenging for them. What has happened with our 9th graders is that sometimes because they're performing at such a high level, they'll have repeat questions from the fall to the winter and then winter to spring. And so it's not necessarily challenging them to an appropriate level for us to really be able to kind of figure out, especially anyone that might be kind of high flying, really in depth with regards to their reading capabilities, their comprehension, their vocabulary. With regards to the other pieces, I actually think that Map Growth does provide us with a really good basis of information. And I say that because they've updated their reports within the past handful of years where they have district data, school data, classroom data, student data. And as a district, I can start at the district level, but I can continuously click in and get as detailed as I want.
Okay.
Or stay at kind of that large macro level. I think the tricky part with Map Growth, and we've had this conversation before, is that it is national,
Yeah.
right? It's a national assessment, it's nationally normed. There's only a handful of districts in Massachusetts that use it.
Mm.
And I think at times
Yeah.
we like to compare ourselves to other districts in Massachusetts
Right.
that might be a bit more competitive.
Mhm.
And so I think that is sometimes the challenge. But I think with Map Growth, what is most interesting is being able to compare it to ourselves. And I think there's significant value in doing that.
Okay.
And I think that we're able to glean that from this information.
And the other question that kept coming up, I mean, that there's been a lot of talk, I don't know the official talk about it, but just amongst parents about the stress of taking tests and the stress on students of test taking. And I don't have a sense of like how much assessment this is, and also, is this an assessment that is like kind of structured a little bit differently than test taking and is part of their learning day that is a little bit different? I'm trying to get a sense of like what kind of stresses this is putting
Yeah.
into the classroom.
So we certainly want to teach test taking strategies, right? With
Okay.
regards to you are taking an assessment, we want to put them in that mindset of how do we take assessments, right? Like we approach it in a way that's serious, but we also ensure that the point to really be clear about the purpose of this.
Yeah.
The purpose of this is to give your teacher information about what you need to learn,
Good.
right? So it's not a comparison of the typical like
Like if
0
you
to
don't do well,
100
you're
or-
not getting into college. I mean, that kind of.
Correct. No. No,
Yeah.
not by any
Yeah.
means. And that, I
Yeah.
think the thing, because they start in 2nd grade with this assessment,
Right.
our students are used to knowing that, oh, it's Map Growth. They take it seriously, but it's not the stress level, not nearly the stress level that like MCAS used to have for students, or that taking an SAT has for students. You go into a school on a Map Growth day and it's just kind of like, oh, it's a Map Growth day.
Cool.
So it's not necessarily and that, I'm generalizing, of course, we have some students who have test anxiety and they know it's an assessment, that's them, right?
Yeah,
But we also know that about those students, and so we preemptively have conversations, we tell them, and we make sure that we're really explicit about it.
okay.
With regards to the actual assessment itself, it depends on the grade level and how long kind of it takes. But typically grade levels set aside 45 minutes to an hour for each of the tests. And so 45 minutes to an hour of the reading, 45 minutes to an hour for the math. And students can finish that much quicker. Sometimes some students finish it a lot faster, and others times, like I was saying, some students need a little bit of extra time, but we're very aware of the amount of time. We don't want students to be spending hours because the data that we get from this is helpful, but it's not helpful for them to be missing the math lessons
Yeah.
that they should be in on
Yeah.
while they're taking this. And so we're cognizant of that and making sure that we have those conversations.
Thank you.
And I can add to that. I've used map testing since its inception in 2000, every district I've been in. Part of why we don't see a lot of it happening in Eastern United States is it originated from the Western United States, and I did a couple graduate degrees Western United States. So I was around when this first came out. I was also part of I call it the Great Debate on the Common Core back in 2010, 2011. In fact, I wrote an op-ed for the Boston Globe, 2011, I think it was. And this all kind of ties in. They were redoing MCAS or redoing standardized tests at that time, and there was a real huge debate about adaptive tests versus standardized tests. And I was really hoping that Massachusetts would jump on the bandwagon and go with an adaptive test. Education leadership point of view, this is data-driven. It's good data to help students learn. It's immediate data. Standardized data has its limitation. And I appreciate the fact that, the state figured they wanted to stay with common road that they were on. There are many states in the Western United States that are very competitive nationally and beyond, because this is an international assessment. It isn't a national assessment. It's given in Canada. I used it in Canada when I was a superintendent. It allows us to know where our students are and challenge those students that are above grade level, and also give the support that students need that are at or below grade level. But it's about having data that makes a difference rather than having data on our MCAS where we get the results in the fall. Our students are already in another grade with a new teacher, new subjects. And I'm not saying they don't have some merit, but I think it's more of an accountability merit than a data-driven merit for our students. So I'm a firm believer in this. As part of the recipe that I've used to help schools move forward for many, many years. And we are very conscious of a balance between testing and learning within a classroom in terms of curious learning, call it. But it's something that I feel strongly has made a huge difference in helping our students learn. 14 and a half years I've been here.
I know we had a conversation, so I don't want to go before. I don't want to steal your
I
question,
think
so
your question segues nicely from me.
I want to be careful not to steal yours.
Don't even worry about it.
All right.
There's no build up to this question.
Okay.
Right.
This is,
Yeah.
I got the longest tenure on here, so I've seen this presentation a number of times, right? And it's always well done. I always ask the question, hey, I'd love to see the comparative data against other towns in Massachusetts. I recognize that, if we don't have the best public education in the country, it's right up there at the top of the charts. So we got a leg up on the national average to begin with. But aside from that, I have looked at the trend grade over grade. And I understand it's apples and oranges, but the things are moving in the right direction. So, round of applause for the efforts and the staff and all the good work that's going into this. It's good stuff. This is where I want to be careful not to get into your questions.
That's fine. I have plenty. That's fine.
Which is, I'm a big believer, and I think we all are, in data-driven decisions and all that good stuff. And I think that this is excellent. We have to take a couple of days away from instruction to give the assessments, but I believe it's worth it. So I think my first question is, and I've maybe asked it before, but remind me because I have a bad memory. what do we do to support the staff in terms of their ability to take some time out of their day to look at, like, let's look at the 2 to 5 population, right? Because they teach multiple subjects. So somebody's giving a math lesson in one classroom, somebody else is giving a math lesson in another classroom. And maybe when we've done the assessment 3 times, we look at trends and it's like, geez, that person's class had, you know, and it could be just the population of students in there, but it might also just be they spent a little bit more time on a lesson, or they've got a little bit more experience, so they knew certain sections were going to be more difficult and they had other ways to do it. So from a district standpoint, do we stop and pause and give the staff the chance to get together and collaborate on their results and in forward, you know, zoom out 10,000 foot view? How can we use this data, share best practices, that type of stuff?
So 2 different ways that we do that. Data meetings happen. And
Okay.
so this is a big piece of our data meetings. And in doing that, our interventionists really dig into this data, and then they are a good source of kind of sharing that data back out. So they've done a lot of the analyzing of the data and sharing that back out with the teams and with the grades. So it happens in that way. The other way is during team meetings. And so, for example, there is opportunity for, and I think that's part of the team meeting kind of structure that we're wanting to kind of really build up, is teachers being able to share their practices of what they're doing and what's working. Because that, you're right, that sharing their practices is going to be what they learn from each other to improve the students' outcomes in the end, right? So for example, I was in a couple of our elementary classrooms recently, and happened to be in the same grade level. I went to 2 different classes. I saw the same lesson twice, delivered in 2 different ways. And I happened to say to a more veteran teacher, I said, hey, that was really interesting. How did you choose to do it in that way? And they said, oh, well, after doing it last year in a different way, I realized pretty quickly we needed to adapt. I said, wow, that's really great. During an upcoming conversation, can you maybe share that strategy with your team, so that way everyone's aware, and it's okay to do it in a different way, right? So like, I was encouraging them to have the conversation, but B, also like giving them permission. It's amazing how much you have to say to educator, like, yes, please do that. Like, please change it up, right? Like, it's okay. It's permission, giving them permission to do that, not necessarily asking them to do it because they want to do it. It's giving them permission that it's okay to do that. And so I bring that example up because it then leads to them having a conversation about what they're doing for teaching and learning. And so our newer or less seasoned teachers can learn from those conversations in a low risk environment and then take it back to their classroom and try with their students. And so I would say our data team meetings, the way that we analyze the data and then push that data out with our grade levels, and with our grade level team meetings, there is opportunity for that. Granted, there's a lot of things competing for that time, right? And so I do think it's tricky. Could we do better? I'm going to say yes, majority of the time to that question. And I think that's something for us to consider and think about, but there are opportunities for it, and it is happening.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. My next question is related to the individual, like, it's time constraint, right? It's every, we wish we had more time.
Yeah.
So the average teacher's got 22 or 23 kids in a classroom. Does the teacher have enough time to sort of look at all 23 students and say, okay, how could I assist this student so that we see a greater potential for winter and spring? Or do we really just notice that it's a bell curve and we make referrals for those that have, show signs of struggle? Perhaps on the upside of the bell curve, do we say, okay, I got a handful of students in my classroom that are exceeding expectations or whatever, I could implement challenge questions or advance the reading level in the groups or whatever? Or is there an opportunity for them to look at even those that are in the middle to say, you're in the middle and you're average, but here were your areas of weakness and this is where we need to circle back? So it's a complicated question, but
Yeah.
does everybody really get a benefit out of this? The hope is yes, and I realize that that's nearly impossible.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so yes, and right to all of the above. So I think our immediate, those that get the kind of the first look at are kind of our students who are struggling, right? Who have the lower RIT scores and who have the higher RIT scores, right? Our bookends are typically those that we're like, they catch our eyes first,
Sure.
right? Because they're standing out, they're outliers. And so we want to ensure the students that are on the lower end are going to get the intervention or the support or the really direct instruction that they're going to need. And then on the other end, right, being able to really challenge those students so that they are maintaining engagement and learning.
Right.
It's that middle piece that you look at, right? And I think that's where looking at it and why our teachers use it to form groups is really looking at that middle section. And so what comes, the students with the lower RIT scores and the higher RIT scores, it kind of becomes obvious pretty quickly, right? And those are like small groups, figure those out right away. It's that middle where you're like, okay, here are five areas, right? Which 2 or 3 am I going to focus on first? And so it is looking at that middle group of students and seeing out of this middle group of students, what are my highest needs? And starting there. And so it is looking, I would say, everyone benefits. Our outliers benefit potentially the fastest because those are what jump out to us.
Sure.
And then the middle group is what benefits from our small group, our win groups that we create, anything of that sort.
Great work on this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I want to start by commending you for a very clear presentation, the beautiful slide deck. But you have a real talent for taking a complicated topic and making such a clear explanation for us. So I know it takes some time to do that. So I really appreciate you doing that
Thank you.
for us. I'm going to ask the question I thought you were going to ask.
So I'm to leave it for you.
Oh,
No, I'm
okay.
kidding. I don't even know what the question is.
Here, okay.
I know, we should.
Good luck.
We're on your side.
Totally.
So I'm curious, you mentioned that the questions are aligned with Massachusetts standards. Does that mean that they could also create Massachusetts norms instead of having to do the national norms?
I don't think they do it because there's not enough districts with across the state to really put their effort into it. And because it's really, because we are Common Core, we're Common Core Plus, right?
Right.
And so it's really majority Common Core that it's aligned with, but they do have the Massachusetts standards because they are able to then align it with other things within our direct curriculum. So I would love to, and I had a call maybe 2 weeks ago with our rep, and I did yet again, I asked the question because I know someone in particular asks every year, can we compare to other students in Massachusetts? I think it's a very valid question. I asked again, and again, their response is no, they don't collect it on a state basis. And so unfortunately, we don't have that, data, and I don't think they're willing at this point in time, based on the response that I got, to put it together.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of these adaptive tests. I kind of getting back to what you were saying earlier, Janine, like I've done walkthroughs in classrooms that were administering adaptive tests, and the kids are not stressed out at all because they're not being asked questions that are too hard for them. So it's not like MCAS where you might get hit with a zinger that's way above your ability level, and that's stressful and frustrating. But because it's adaptive, like each question that's offered to the child is within, using the information from the previous responses, it's going to be within their range. So just from my observation, it seems like a very low stress situation. But the other thing I really like about these tests is that, the potential for how you use the information. And it seems like in the aggregate, it informs your decisions about curriculum. But student by student, I think this is just an amazing opportunity to really dig into each student's individual learning profile and give them what they need. And I notice on your slide where you're talking about the use of data, you did mention creating win groups. And I was wondering if here you ever provide win groups that go across classrooms. So like an interventionist can meet with students from one class and that have a specific need with others that have that same specific need. And I know it's like a scheduling issue, but.
Yeah. So each grade level has win at the same time. So I'll speak specifically to Russell Street because this is where I know it definitely happens.
Yeah.
And they have the explicit win time. It happened a lot more previously. And then when students during the pandemic, right? Not being able to switch classrooms, switch cohorts, mix. And so it's coming back, this crossing between classrooms, which has a lot of benefits for many reasons, right? One, you're targeting specific skills that the students need. Two, they might be learning from a different adult that has a different approach. And three, they're able to build relationships with that other adult that might be different than the one that they're typically with all day long, and different students that they may not be with all day long, right? And so there's, never mind the academic benefits, but there's social emotional benefits to that approach as well, right? And so, yes, they do. And that's why looking at kind of the grade level data together is very helpful to be able to say, okay, here are our major topics. We have this chunk that need this specific skill, and one teacher will take a cohort and work on that specific skill. And it'll be a blend of students from all 6 classes of that grade level. And so more of that is coming back, which I think is great for many of the reasons that I listed.
Yeah, I mean,
That's awesome.
what an innovative way to use the
Yeah.
information you get.
That's cool.
So, yeah, so that was my question at the student level, and then going back out to the aggregate with the impact it can have on curriculum. So it sounds like from what you were saying that you're already seeing the impact of the implementation of Into Math, because you saw a jump, and I noticed that when I was reviewing the packet ahead of time.
Yeah.
Like, how long did that take for, from the implementation of Into Math to start to see the impact on the math scores?
That's a good question. And I'd say the answer to this, I think, is actually an outlier, because typically when you implement, you're going to have an implementation dip. And we saw implementation dips in year 1 of implementing the program, in the sense of kind of struggling with different modules and assessments and how to do it. But overall, we saw pretty quickly an increase in our student outcomes with regards to implementing Into Math. And so pretty early on, we saw positive results with regards to implementing the new program in math. And so I'm really happy that we're continuing to see those increases and being able to see it really 3, 4, 5, 6, continuing that growth. And so it happened very quickly, I would say, for Into Math. Typically, and I feel like people have warned me, don't assume that that's going to happen with ELA. And so I'm hoping that, hoping we see those positive results, but also being very aware that it's a totally different beast, right? It's a totally different curriculum, it's a different approach, it's a different style. And so I'm keeping an eye on that to see what happens there. Because I think the math was so successful so quickly, it may have put us in a spot where we're going to assume very quick high results. And I think we need to make sure that we're kind of reestablishing the norm of implementation, that it does take years to implement.
Yeah.
Large whole scale changes like that.
We did notice some growth the first year. We're kind of blown away by that, because we're waiting for that implementation dip. And all of a sudden when we're testing our students, they started to go up. And there really wasn't much of an implementation dip at all. I do have a comment, not a question, and implications for the future. For many years, we've enjoyed the opportunity to hire staff in our district, provide the training to them, and keeping them in our district for most of their career. But in the last 4 years, we've noticed a shift where teaching positions have opened up in the state and beyond. And it's not as if our teachers don't want to stay with us, but rather be closer to home if they have young children. So as a result of that, we have more new teachers coming into our district every year. And yet we have a philosophy of professional development that continually helps our teachers grow. But then we have somebody at the entry level coming into our district. And it's a little bit of a challenge, because they aren't at the same spot. I mean, they might have come from a school district that has a similar philosophy, but maybe not. And so we have curriculum mapping, team meetings, 2-year mentorship program, that helps. But when we're talking about Into Math and Wit and Wisdom, those are huge lists, mindset that changes. And Beth and I are just trying to figure out what do we need to do to provide support to those staff that are coming in, because they're not going to be up to speed in year 1. They're going to grow like everybody else. So, I mean, we can be creative, but there's a money component attached to it. I mean, I've had the luxury in my career of hiring teachers, and And at times been able to hire a full-time teacher and have them at a 0.6, and then they would work with other staff during the rest of the day. That's very expensive. Another thing we could do that's less expensive is take a look at the possibility of hiring a K-5 math coach and a K-5 ELA coach to work with those teachers to get them up to speed as quickly as we can. So we're still trying to figure out what's the best way to do this, because it's unfair to hire a new teacher, especially with, 2 years, 3 years of experience, and expect them to get up to speed and be the same kind of teacher that their colleagues are within 4 months, 5 months. I think they do an incredible job helping them and supporting them, but I often, when I have discussions with Beth, is there something else we can do to make their lives a little easier as well? As we all know, when you move into a new teaching position in a new school, it's stressful. We want to make sure we support them, and we want to make sure that we have them stay as well. We don't want people leaving because they feel that our expectations are too high. Well, that's the challenge that we're trying to figure out right now.
I did have one more question, but it's kind of connected to your next presentation.
Okay.
Which was, so I'll leave you with it and you don't have to answer it now, but I was wondering how these WIN groups or how the data that you're getting informs strategies for UDL. So
Definitely does.
yeah. So you can talk about it here or there, whichever fits better for your
Okay.
headspace.
I mean, I can start here and then it'll come naturally when we have conversation about UDL. So looking at what is helpful is that this data provides us the standards, the very specific content, right? And I think a lot of times the UDL piece is the delivery of that, right? And so if the one delivery didn't work, we have to look at what's another delivery, what's another way to access that content, that standard. And so when we're looking, we see we have a bulk of students in a WIN group that are ready to learn a specific standard, right? So we have a WIN group dedicated to it. We then have to ensure it all comes down to the teaching and learning practices of that standard, right? And can the students in that group access that? And that's when we're looking at what UDL strategies are we using and implementing to have students be able to access that, and not just access it, but really engage with it, right? Because if you're engaging with it, then you're actually going to process and permit. So more will certainly come during UDL, so I won't go too far down that road.
Well, thank you for that intro.
Sure.
Thanks, Beth.
Thank you.
I think that presentation was worthy of applause.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I will let Jason know there was an applause.
Yes.
Really had a lot to do with you, Beth, not Jason. All right, next up, we've got advanced placement testing. So it's high school administration, but we have featured guest John Harrington. We'll review the 2025 AP assessment results.
Yes. I'm happy to report our students challenged themselves and they did well overall. And you had a chance to look at, the report in your packet. As we traditionally do, we have sort of similar slides show each year. Talk about our current AP courses at LHS. You can see for such a small high school, we do have a rich array of offerings covering lots of different disciplines. So, but then you'll see even more subjects where students took 2025 AP exams well beyond what we offer. And this is as a result of students taking VHS courses and virtual courses, but also self-study and learning it themselves and sitting for the test. Well, I've always been impressed in my years at high school, number of students that will, it used to be that they would go to Barnes and Noble and get the book. Now it's all online. They study for the test, teach themselves, look at YouTube videos, things like that. They've done quite well. Many of the students, they just didn't have the room in their schedule necessarily to add, an 8th, 9th course, not like some kids would. They amaze me at that. There is some concern. This is something we say every year. The students are challenging themselves, but are they doing it to an excessive level? That's why some schools have, posed restrictions on, capped the number of courses you can take. Comes up fairly frequently, but it's brief each year. Students have appetite for them. We try to counsel them through the process of not overtaxing themselves and trying to have a rich high school experience where they're engaged in other co-curricular activities and having time. And we also encourage work. Colleges are impressed when they see that you have employment experience when you apply, for the admission, and not just, overly saturated with academic content. So that's just something I want to always acknowledge in the AP presentation. Although, of course, we're proud of our students, especially the number of AP scholars we have. But the College Board is also incentivized students to reach that status by saying take more AP courses, taking more AP courses. And so our counselors do a good job, though, overall of counseling the students to take the appropriate number of courses. But there they are, lots of courses. All right, and exams. Next slide will show that the number of students taking AP exams, and we're at an all-time high. We just topped last year, the number of students taking exams and the number of AP exams taken. So you can see there's lots of strong appetite for students to challenge themselves. And one of the things we noticed, and teachers remarked about the performances, we had students who, in some cases, had never taken an honors course, but wanted to challenge themselves for an AP course. So the question comes up of prerequisites. When you have 30 students scoring below a 3 or something, you have to sort of watch that. But the old adage has been that challenge yourself. At least you had the experience. Your kids want to take the opportunity, and they're encouraged by their parents in many cases to take at least one AP course. They want to do it before they graduate. Maybe it's to enhance their transcript, but it's also to have an experience of a college level course. And the College Board and other people testify that having the experience, even if you don't get a 3, is a positive thing, because you've really challenged yourself. You've worked with rigorous curriculum and gone, outside your comfort zone. So that's reflected, and we've seen that in the scores. Next slide, please. Percentage of exams at each AP score level. And you can see where I was talking about 12% at 2, 30 students there, 38 number of student exams there. And, and sometimes, just go back, Steve, for a second. Sometimes that's a reflection of the kids stretching themselves too thin, taking too many APs, and, the stress, we see that every year, and 1 or 2 students for sure, we stand out and say, they won't sit for the exam. They took the course, or they're just stressed about it, the test, because they have too many. So that reality has to really be brought home, and that can be reflected in performance. But look at the number of students who had 5s and 4s. It was really quite impressive number overall. 83% there, greater than 3 or equal to. Next slide. Next. And you'll see another breakdown here. You can just enough. I'll give you different ways of looking at the data. And this shows us over the last 5 years, and you can see some comparison data, different cohorts, of course. But some of these kids are in 2024 data because they were juniors. They took exams, and we have every now and then we'll start to have some sophomores. We offered an AP European course, European history course, a couple of years back, more than a couple of years back. We opened that up to sophomores, and they did fine. But that was something that the College Board said they are pushing AP courses at a younger and younger level too. And AP Human Geography sometimes comes up as, we don't offer it, but it comes up as sometimes an offer that kids would like. And now there's an AP, we don't offer this course, but there's an AP, we had a student last year, maybe 3, who took AP pre-calculus. And our pre-calculus honors course is probably comparable. I bet you if our kids, our pre-calculus honors took the test, they'd probably do fine. But that's another, the branding and marketing from the College Board. Next slide. This is just another visual depiction of the data across the years. You can see it in your packet, but you already saw that in the table before. Next slide, please. There's always a number, a chart we look to, number and percentage of students with 1 or more scores. So the students that challenge themselves, but overall, did you get that 3 for that potential college credit? A lot of colleges, I think I've said this in previous presentations, you're looking for the 4 or 5 before they give credit now. It used to be standard. Most schools that if you got a 3, but I guess it's so common. And again, not to sound too repetitive from previous presentations, for those who've been around a while, there's colleges that even if you do score quite well, and you're in their engineering program, I'll just say that they want you taking their calculus course or their physics course. Yeah, and perhaps it's for money.
Tuition dollars?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They want you, they want you to have, they really want to see what you can do, but it's definitely money and as well as making sure that you're prepared to handle the content the way they want you to in their program. So you have a chance to look at that slide, proud of the 91% percentage of AP students, with scores greater than or equal to 3. Next one, AP scholars, you have the definitions there of AP scholar with honor, AP scholar with distinction. We used to have a national one, which I think thankfully eliminated because it just incentivized kids to take more tests. So we have a running record here. Next slide will show you real strong performance and students being recognized for their high level of achievement. It's back to last year we have to acknowledge it was an exceptional year with 50 total AP scholars. But, we had 15 this year stand out with distinction, and the 35 this year is consistent with past performance. It's sort of the mean of where we've been, or median of where we've been. We definitely had an outlier year with 50 last year. So, and a lot of the kids who are in this year's class they represented part of that 50 last year. Summary notes, 91% of our students scored at least a 3, one AP exam. 61% of our graduating class scored a 3 exam at least once. And then 145 exams, which is very impressive, were scored 4 or 5. I want to give a shout out to AP Bio, English Lit, Comp, AP Calc, 96% of the students scored and 3 or better. AP English, I want to announce a new course we have this year. We're thinking about offering this for a while, but AP English Language Comp, new offering. And an announcement that 50 students took AP courses through through a special grant through VHS, and 45 of them of the 50 were through a special DESE grant that has been discontinued. So that we saw that definitely promoted participation. The kids were saying it was free; they didn't have to pay. So, and they took it on, online in many cases, and it was all in the STEM field: science, technology, math, engineering. And so that we'll see if it comes back, but right now that's been discontinued. Let's see what kind of impact that has participation rates. I don't have it handy right now, but that definitely incentivize and encourage kids to take AP course instead for an exam. So again, proud of our students. They did well. They challenged themselves. That's our presentation.
Thank you for sharing. Questions, comments?
A couple. They're pretty short. They're mostly clarifying questions.
Sure.
This is super data really helpful. So there was, I think, 10 AP courses that we offered, 21 total subjects. So of the 11 that they're sort of studying on their own, VHS, whatever. Do we know if there's like a different success rate when they're doing it on their own versus doing it?
Yeah, I did notice in computer science principles, where there was a lower performance there.
Okay.
Maybe because they didn't have the teacher on the side. They were trying, being self-taught.
Yeah, that's what
I was wondering about if that was a VHS course or how many of those kids just signed up for the course. That's a good question. We should tease out that data or try to find out what's happening there. Is it the VHS instruction or is it that they ventured on their own? I don't have that breakdown for you tonight of how many kids were guided or self-taught, self-directed, and how many were. We do know that 50 kids took it through VHS though.
Yeah.
I didn't break down their scores necessarily.
Yeah, I think just something to look into or keep an eye on, especially because you're talking about students sort of spreading themselves too thin or the pressure of taking too many, where we're not finding a very high success rate when they sort of go off on their own. Is it worth the stress or the time or the effort that's put in?
I appreciate that question. We'll definitely look into that. We have seen kids, superstar achievers do really well. I know just anecdotally, but I'd like to look at the numbers, get that breakdown.
Yeah, we are looking at learning groups of students that are taking virtual classes, same subject. It's very powerful if we get them together and work together. Another dream of mine, and John knows I talk about this almost every year, I'd like to see a greater partnership with Middlesex College and high school. It's nice that you have AP courses. We have opportunities beyond the four walls of our school. And I think we need to do whatever we can to broaden our choice within our high school. It's gonna take some courageous discussions at times, but I'm not against virtual learning at all. I think there's a place for it, but I also am a firm believer that I would like to see every one of our students have an opportunity to take a college course before they graduate. Because the research is crystal clear. If our students have experience at the college level, the percentage rate of them finishing their degree on time increases significantly. And I think that's something that's missing in a number of high schools at this point in time. And with the opportunities that colleges are giving us now, it's just a matter of how do we make this work? And how do we continue to have our staff that are with us full time feel empowered if we're starting to have classes being taught by them.
Yeah.
Subject first.
Just today, we had another student enroll in a dual enrollment course at Middlesex Community College. A lot of those courses now are, because of our rotating schedule, it's hard for students, to leave, come back, and, this is not sometimes travel time, to take a class in person. We have had students do that, adjust their schedules and take in-person classes at Middlesex Community College. What's very popular now is the remote feature. So Middlesex has expanded that. It's very affordable, and they can get college credit. And as we've said before in previous presentations, the Commonwealth Compact allows them, you go off to Bridgewater State, UMass Amherst, UMass Boston. Those credits will be accepted if And we also have staff, a number of staff teaching courses at the high school, but they're adjunct faculty. I think you know that. And students can take a pathway where they can get dual enrollment credit for that. So that's something that the superintendent has advocated for years, and it's really expanded in the last few years because of his advocacy and support for that program.
That was actually one of my questions too, because I remember you sharing about the dual credit courses. It's incredible that we do that, and yet we still see a growth in the number of the number of students participating in AP courses, which I find surprising. And at the same time, colleges honoring AP scores less and less and giving credit, why students aren't opting for the dual credit over AP courses.
It's GPA, it's our GPA, quality points, that's what it is. So it boosts, they all know this, and they figured it out. And in schools, we'll look at the strength of you, and one of the biggest indicators that are, records that the admissions folks will look at is your strength in your high school transcript.
Right.
Challenging your courses and your performance in those courses. So students have stretched themselves, and they get a quality point bonus for taking AP courses where they don't get that. Our dual enrollment courses or honors. CP.
I did.
I get honors credit for it at the high school. But that's the reason.
That was the trick. And then last question, it said 134 students took AP TAT. Yeah, here, 2025, number of students taking AP exam, 134. Out of how many? Is this like juniors and seniors mostly?
Mostly, yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
because we have what 200 something juniors and seniors?
Yeah, it was the total number of exams was 260, right? But the number of students was 134 AP students, yeah. So
It's
that's,
about half the two.
yeah, I mean, you figure we have about 100 kids and 100 change, for 100,
Yeah.
120 students in each class.
Okay,
So like the whole class.
yeah.
We
So
have
it's
had,
over 50% participation, I'd say, across the juniors and seniors.
we have had two students graduate from Littleton High School with an associate's degree as well, simultaneous.
Yeah.
So it's been done. In fact, one of those individuals actually works with us.
A staff member.
A staff member. So
I noticed the past 3 years is when the numbers of students really jumped up. With that data that you were just looking at, the number of students taking AP exams, and
Yeah.
does that correlate with the
Participation.
VHS programs?
Yes, that definitely, I don't know if that ran for 2 years or what, might have, but it was definitely, it helped. That, we had the biggest number of participants. I think it has run, if look at that 259 260, it just really boomed. And I think that was a contributing factor. The opportunities online, we expanded with VHS. And it's just this increased appetite among students and their parents as well. They get a fair amount of pressure from parents to take, multiple APs.
Well, I'm glad the guidance department is on top of this, because that's my concern that, we want to challenge our students certainly, but we also want them to have a positive high school experience.
Yeah, to
your
Jane's point earlier about stress, and they can be mindful of that.
Right.
Yeah.
And,
So
be able to
we're
look back
very,
on their high school
we're very
year,
watchful
the-
and
not
careful with
just AP tests
Yeah.
and academics.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I asked what the success rate was outside of the courses they're taking. Is it actually proving successful for them to do?
if it weakens overall, you spread yourself too thin, and you're
Yeah.
not able to achieve the high performance on, being curating a little bit more selective and say, I'm gonna focus on these two APs junior year, 2 more APs senior year. That seems like a reasonable load.
Yeah,
The way of kids, that will load up on their own.
And it isn't just, a little bit, it isn't just from us, but I know some of the stress on and the focus on why to take AP comes from parents, schools, and they get that. But do we have any messaging around the fact that taking a calculus AP class then allows a student to go into college calculus better prepared because of, as we all know, the more you take that material,
Yeah.
the better. So
I appreciate you saying, one of the best
yeah,
pieces of feedback we get each year is when our alumni come back and they visit teachers and we thank them, and when I always ask them, I want our students to be as prepared or better prepared than the students they're sitting in a college classroom with, that they can hold their own. And I can say that we haven't surveyed this, but that probably would be a good survey. But we have anecdotally over many years collected information that councils have done this, and the kids felt really well prepared. In selective schools too, where it's a challenging curriculum.
yeah. Don't we do that K through 12, really? Like you have material and you teach it in second grade and then you teach it again in third grade a little bit more, and in fourth grade. We build that. I mean, this is just a continuation of that, and the messaging around it is so like a means to an end. You take the AB class to get a 3, and it's like, but you shouldn't. You should take the AP class because it's going to give you that material in a certain way, and then you're going to go into a class with that material, and you're going to be able to do more with that material. Right?
You had an advantage. So if you had a college level course in high school and you step into that room, even if you don't get the exemption like they used to give you for a 3.
Right.
Yeah, for
Just
sure.
to do better. And I would love more of that messaging and less of the save money and get a 3 and save money,
And one little, I don't thing to note that I've noticed the last 2 years, we haven't collected data with school choice. We've always had students, families interested in Littleton for special education services. They just had an experience in their own town, and they wanted to change social life for some kids. They just need a change because things are not working out well in another school district. We have had students, and it would be interesting to start to collect the numbers, who are choosing to come to Littleton High School because of the AP program. They've said that the challenging curriculum, the reputation of the school and the community. But in particular, I had one kid say in this past year, school choice, and it was related to being able to take the AP courses here that we offer, and we haven't capped them because we wanted to be challenged more. So we'll see how he ends up. That's pretty.
Thank you for sharing. I'll add a nice presentation, seen it
Thank you.
before. The numbers continue to be strong. I had the same question as Beano, so
Yeah.
to tease that information out, I'd be curious, because what's great about our district is we're small. We can only do so much ourselves, right? But we have the ability to really connect with that student on an individual basis for where they want to challenge themselves, and provide a resource for them to seek that opportunity, even if we can't provide it in-house. And we want to do so with guidance. We don't just want to say, oh, you want to do this, go right ahead, and set them up for disaster.
Oh, yeah.
But
It's all in the car.
I recognize that we're a small district and we're able to take, individual ownership and help students explore areas that are of interest to them. And we can only do so much. And Kelly, I don't know if there's any place for school committee involvement in strengthening that partnership with Middlesex Community College. But that's of interest to me. So if you, I work in Wall, I don't have any ties to Middlesex Community College, but I bet you I can help somehow.
I'd love to have that conversation.
So, sure.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thanks. We'll give you a round of applause. Evan. All right. Moving right along. We're now going to hear from Beth Steele again. Welcome back.
That's
Um,
For the rest of the night.
yeah.
My water this time.
Right. So this is the 2025-2026 curriculum review. You'll walk us through calendar and enlighten us upon the process.
Absolutely. So our curriculum review cycles are fairly extensive and complex with regards to all the steps that go into them. And so before I share with you what the plans are for this year, just want to give you a very, very brief overview of our curriculum review process and the cycle that it entails. So you see here on the side a sheet. It has on the left side the stages of our process, and the right side kind of those action steps that happen within that stage. And so we revamped this process a handful of years ago, and we continue to refine it because every time we do it, we realize, oh, we should have done that first. We should have done this after. We should have started a little bit earlier. And so it is not set, it's not a process that is set in stone. It changes and adapts as we continue to improve upon it. And there's also like sometimes a slight different lens depending on what content area we're working with regards to the curriculum review. And so, as I mentioned, the 4 stages are on the left side. So we have our learn and prepare, and then we go into our investigate and select. 3rd stage is our launch. And then the 4th is the implement and monitor. That 4th stage is the one that actually lasts for several years. The launch, we typically is that first year of implementation. So last year, for example, was when we launched Wit and Wisdom. And then we try to do stages 1 and 2 within 1 academic year. And so we're really kind of building up, looking at analyzing, doing a needs assessment of the content, the curriculum, and the area that we're looking at what the curricular landscape is, what's out there, what are options, is there anything better than what we're doing right now, making a decision, and then trying to start PD if we can on the earlier side. So that's really big picture of the curriculum review cycle, and it is continuously ongoing, right? So we start and then it maintains for several years because, as we know, implementation of any curricular changes takes several years. So on the next slide, we see our elementary, and I apologize, it's small, but I want to screenshot so that way you could see kind of previous years where we started a handful of years ago and where we're headed. And so you can see the actual process on the left side, and then you're able to see each year which content area is in which stage of the process. And so if we look at last year, for example, 24-25, that was our implementation. Again, this is elementary, just elementary. We do have it separated out. We looked at, we implemented Wit and Wisdom. So it was year 1, we were launching Wit and Wisdom. The previous school year to that, 23-24, is when we had a curriculum council of about 27 or so teachers coming together and doing stages 1 and 2 together. It was a huge lift. The curriculum council was an immense help in making sure that we analyzed the program that we were using, looking at what it was not having, what it was lacking, what we needed, and really considering and understanding the science of reading and making sure that we looked at what that means and what we were missing and what components we needed to add into our ELA block and our literacy practices. And so that was all 1 academic year. Last year, we launched Wit and Wisdom. And so you'll see at the elementary level this year, you could say, oh, we're not doing a curriculum review. But in true curriculum review cycle, there's always work happening, right? And so you can see that We're in our 4th year of Into Math, and so we are continuing to keep an eye on that, making sure that conversations around math are still happening, making sure we're still providing support where and when needed. We have made a major shift to focusing on ELA, to focusing on wit and wisdom. And so this year, we are continuing with providing professional development, really supported professional development for K-5 educators for wit and wisdom to ensure that now we're a year into using the program, so we have a better understanding of the program itself. But now it's time for us to really kind of hone in and align the program with our standards and with really good teaching and learning practices of literacy in the elementary level. And so we're very, very aware to build in this year of 25-26 to not have any curriculum council needing to be formed or put together, because we really wanted to make sure that we gave time and focus to the implementation of literacy and continuing on with the math, because it has been very heavy lifts over the past couple of years. And so we are ensuring that proper PD is provided. We're continuing to refine and improve our instruction. And we'll be able to this year, because we have this focus on that, to really build out and update our ELA program itself and the curriculum maps. And so that is our plan this year with regards to our curriculum review cycle for the elementary. The next slide has our secondary plan. And our secondary plan, I will say, take note that Unified Arts within our school system is a K-12 department. And so that's why you see Unified Arts on the secondary chart, as well as Health and Wellness. That's a K-5 department. And so that department is also listed here and considered within the secondary review cycle. Again, same process on the left, all 4 stages and the action steps that we go through. We started really revamping and reviewing our secondary curriculum councils a couple of years ago in 22-23 with our Science and Unified Arts. We're in a space where they are continuing to implement using their new resources, really starting to get a little bit more comfortable and making adjustments per the students that are in front of them. Since then, we have also been able to review our world language and our history curricular materials. Last year, we were able to go through our health, wellness, and math curriculum. And so this year, our 6 to 12 math classes are implementing brand new curricular choices. And our health and wellness really provided a lot of updated resources because they have transitioned to a bit more skills-based. And so for those classes, it was more providing the hands-on materials that they needed to really make sure that the students were able to do what they wanted to do. So this year, 25-26, for our 6 to 12, we are focusing in on ELA. That has started. It starts with meeting with our curriculum coordinator. And so I met last week with Dave Pascucci to be able to say, kind of, here's the process. We have a slew of other documents to share for him and his department to really kind of guide the process, and a task list and timeline for the whole year to try and prevent any confusion or any kind of blockage that we might have throughout the year. And so it is a heavy lift. It is a lot of time for the department to really be able to sit down, examine their current practices, examine their current materials and the books that they're using, and see what else is out there. So what are other districts using? And sometimes it involves going and doing school visits, seeing what other schools are using and how they're using it in their classrooms. And so that's a really nice part of our curriculum review cycle too, being able to go outside of Littleton to see what's happening elsewhere and what materials people are choosing to use and in what ways. And so this year we are focused on the ELA. Like I said, Dave and I have met to start that process. And all of our other departments at this point are in that 4th stage. And so they are currently implementing their new-ish materials and making sure that they align with the standards, because as we know, nothing is necessarily perfect. And so there's a lot of standards alignment work that has to happen, and ensuring that in using these new resources and materials, they're also able to use the UDL guidelines to really ensure that the students are able to access and use the materials in an appropriate way. That was a really brief, quick update on our cycles. I'm going to breathe and take
Very well done.
I really appreciate this. I had asked for this presentation because I knew you had this very rigorous process, and I wanted you to be able to show off to everybody the hard work you do because it's, this is, this is what DESI wants every district to do, but I don't know any other district that actually does it. And it's so, planful is not a word, but it's intentional. It's very intentional and it prevents those surprises where, especially at the elementary level where you're not coming in with too many new programs at once and overwhelming people. And I love the way you involve so many stakeholders in doing the needs assessment, figuring out what are we already doing well, what do we need, what's out there. So I guess my only question is, when you get curveballs that come into your very thoughtful plan is, say for example, when the health and wellness framework became available, did that kind of insert itself into your plan or like, how do you react when there's external forces like that?
Yeah, so we try, so I feel like with most things that I do, it's not necessarily set in stone, right? And so we are able to adapt and be flexible as needed. So we knew for a little while our world language, and I say a little while, a very long time, we were waiting for world language framework to update at the state level, as well as the health and wellness framework to update at the state level. And so we had kind of been flexible as to what year we were actually going to put those in with regards to our curriculum review cycle, because we were waiting for the new framework to release, because we did not want to do the curriculum review cycle and then a year or two later have new standards, because then you have to really re-examine. We may have made a great choice in that the materials align with the new standards as well, but that's a risk, and that's a significant financial risk too, that we weren't necessarily willing to make. And so we try to be flexible and we try to plan ahead as much as we can. It's nice that our standards are at this point updated fairly recently, although some are actually getting close to a decade old, or just over a decade old already. And so just kind of keeping that in mind with moving forward. I think that's a piece that being flexible will be important. Whenever I meet with at the elementary, it's curriculum councils, but with the secondary, it's our curriculum coordinators. I do say to them, this is the opportunity. This is the 1 in 6 years. Like, let's kind of put it all out there, see what we got, see where we are, and really kind of go big. Sometimes I have to talk to Kelly and Steve Mark about that a few times to say how big we want to go, versus how big we can go. But they've been very gracious. We've been very fortunate to be able to really do an overhaul, because it has been a little while since we've been able to do fully revamped curriculum reviews in all of our departments and all of our grade levels. And so it's been, it's a process, and that's why it's constantly kind of refining in order to adapt to those curveballs as needed.
Well, it's very impressive. Thank you for all your hard work on this.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I echo Elaine's comments about the intentionality. My only question is, in the elementary, it looks so calm, you refresh a math, you take a B, you refresh an ELA, you take a B, then for a whole year, you take a B, and then it's science, social studies, math back to back. Any sort of concerns, preparation, that's 3 years of 3 brand new curriculum for a group of educators that teach it all.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Certainly concerned. However, what I will say, and that's where we're flexible, right? Okay. We didn't have this 26 kind of built in buffer year until I think officially it was last year, maybe the year before that. I was like, we're building this buffer in and we need it there, and we're going to deal with the implications of what that means as it approaches us, right? I think the other kind of implication that we do have to consider is that when we do these curriculum reviews, we typically in order to kind of get the best deal, we do long-term multi-year purchase with regards to contracts or anything of that sort. And so we are typically trying to get a longer contract that will get us through to the next curriculum review cycle. And so being aware of that and knowing that we're going to be coming up to a curriculum review cycle, I might have to purchase another year of math in order to get us until we do a review cycle, right? And so I think that's kind of the push and pull of what are we willing to just extend, and what are we willing to say, no, we can't extend it any longer. We have to make changes. And so I think moving forward, that is something for us to consider and something for us to look forward to. And I think with regards to, because it has been a little while, we've been using the same math curriculum in our elementary schools for a couple of 20 years.
Yeah.
And it was time for us to take a look and to do potentially an overhaul because things change, teaching practices change, examples that are in the book need to be a bit more updated, right? And so we knew that we had to make that change. When we come 6 years down the road to the math curriculum review again, we might decide that and that's why it's important to do that needs assessment. We might decide that the program that we're using, the curriculum that we have, is still sufficient and it's still working. And so there may not actually be a huge overhaul of curriculum at that point in time. And I think that's why it's so important for us to have this calendar together and to have it kind of long-term to see the impact. And so that way teachers know it's very intentional that we are going to revisit this in 6 years. And if we're ready to take a different step in a different direction, then we're going to look at that. But also, and I keep telling everyone that it doesn't mean that we have to get a whole new program in 6 years. I'm not forcing that.
Right.
If we're not gonna mess with something if it's working really well for us.
Yeah.
And we're still seeing the benefits from it.
Yeah, it's just
We're
a
not gonna
point to
change.
reflect and maybe validate.
Yeah,
how we were doing.
exactly.
Yes.
And so that's where I think as we get closer to that, when we start to get a better feel for what's happening, we'll be able to kind of determine, does it actually make sense to put a buffer year in or to move something up or something to that effect?
Okay.
So I think that's where we're flexible to a certain extent.
We've really worked hard on changing the mind shift with some of our staff, math curriculum, the LA curriculum, 20 years old. We started this process when Jerry Lynn was director of teaching and curriculum correctly. And I know you know that this isn't a simple linear process. We are really good about collaborating, having conversations. And if we need to stop and reflect and do something different, we do. And that makes us really successful in what we do. But there's always and I think Beth and I are really good about catching ourselves. But when we look back at the history of this district and the time it took to get where we are in ELA and math now, we still have other subjects we really need to deal with. And it's a matter of trying to balance all that so we're not pushing too fast. And I mean, and we're not the only district that was like that. I mean, everyday math and competing with Eureka Math was all, I mean, it was really interesting and intriguing to try to tease that out because everyday math in some grades was a better fit than others. And then we had Eureka Math pop up, and the grades that everyday math wasn't a good fit, they started implementing Eureka Math. So we had a terminology difference and on and on and on. So I'm really proud of where we've gone in that time period. And our staff are really good at letting us know if we're pushing a little too hard. And that's okay. I mean, it's about collaboration and a balance.
Yeah, I think that's an important piece of it is to take the temperature of the staff when they're telling you they're overwhelmed. I know obviously that you're listening to that feedback. I didn't know if you got the information from DESE, you know how DESE has that curate process where teachers review curriculum to see if it, using this rubric to see if it meets these standards for high quality instructional materials. And it's a very rigorous process, but Wit and Wisdom was just rated as high quality instructional materials. So.
As soon as I saw that, I opened it very quickly.
Yes.
I was like, what? It has previously been rated Ed Reports, which is the national, Carrie is the Massachusetts version, the DESE version of Ed Reports, which is the national version. So it has been rated well on Ed Reports. And so it was nice to kind of have that affirmed and confirmed within the state. So it is nice to know that and to kind of go back to that when we say, when it's hard, we say it's hard for a reason. Right, because we know it's high quality and we know it's making sure that our students are really working hard and are thinking about it. So, yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Nice. Well, thank you for putting this together.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll just say thank you for sharing the piece about having those discussions with Steve and Kelly. It's okay to talk about money in school committee meetings. When you were going through the schedule, you know, maybe I don't have my educator lens on. I had like dollar signs attached to all these things.
Yeah.
And it was great to hear that you felt supported. But and of course, you know, maybe it would be uncomfortable to share that if you had the reverse experience.
But you could share like national trends, like, we're noticing that licensure is going up, or the cost of materials are going up, or the programs are just becoming more expensive, because after all, like, one of our three primary responsibilities is putting the budget together. So I just wanted to put that out there for everybody. Like, it's okay to talk about money at school committee meetings. I'm not encouraging every department to line up and share their requests with us, but it's nice to hear about it. Every now and then. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think that is something that I actually talk with our groups about, right? That we're fortunate that it doesn't have to be make or break necessarily on a financial piece. However, at this point in time, right, maybe in future years where things get tighter, and that's always a conversation that I have. And I always tell people that this is what we're looking at spending. This is what this actually costs. This is what the quote came in at. And so I think it's something that it felt taboo previously. And so I'm making sure that we kind of share that information. It's public information, right? The amount of money that we're spending, we're putting onto these resources, which is also why we want to take the time to really ensure that implementation goes well and that we're providing the ongoing continued support for it.
Right.
Steve said yes, yes, yes to the things that you mentioned, and I will reiterate yes, yes, yes to the increase of licenses, the increase of costs. And what's interesting is that a lot of curricular materials are going to have a digital component. They have a digital component as well as a lot of times it's consumable at this point in time. And so that's why we try and do 6-year deals. So that way we know, okay, we're covered
Sure.
financially. And I know that the consumables are going to show up every year for the next 6 years. And the digital component is there. It's costly, right? Because there's benefit and there's different uses to having the digital component versus a physical textbook component. And so it is a costly endeavor, but I appreciate the many conversations that we end up having. And sometimes, I started as, oh, hey, FYI, and then I run away. And then I come back, right? Like sometimes it's all about the approach, which is kind of like the UDL of how I approach them.
Yeah, but there's a multi-year process into the decision, right? So
Exactly.
it's, if there is an increase in spend, it's well supported with the ongoing research that's taken place and the professional development associated with, in fact, you need to make a decision.
And also a commitment to maintaining the Chromebooks because they're needed for the digital component of the curriculum.
Yes, exactly.
It's the hidden costs, right?
Exactly, right.
But that's what makes these reports so very valuable, right? Is because we constantly see the benefit of the investment we've made,
Exactly.
and that's appreciated.
Good with that one?
Yep.
All right, stay warm.
Thank you.
Um,
Oh, Beth, I'm feeling bad for you tonight.
No, this is totally my wheelhouse. It's like my jam. Like I
Just energize you to talk.
I keep it so we're out of this.
Presentation 5, plans for UDL targeted walkthroughs, Superintendent Kelly Clenchey and Ms. Elizabeth Steele, Director of Teaching and Learning, will provide an update on UDL targeted walkthroughs. Take it
Go ahead, you're already up there.
warm.
Pitch in.
All right. So UDL walkthroughs to deepen our practices. You can jump right to the next slide, Steve, please. Thank you. So in order to talk about UDL walkthroughs, I just really briefly want to talk about UDL and what UDL is and what it means. And so we all know that we've been talking about UDL for a while. You've heard about it in various presentations, either implicitly or explicitly. It has been in basically every presentation that we have shared over the past several years. And so UDL is Universal Design for Learning. And really the whole point of Universal Design for Learning is to support students in their learning and for them to acquire student agency that is purposeful, that's authentic, that's reflective. So really helping students become learners and have an investment in their learning. And so a lot of times when you hear UDL, you'll hear the buffet metaphor, right? And so if, for example, I'm having friends over for dinner and I say to my friends, hey, you wanna know what? I'm making, family recipe, meat lasagna, come on over, come hungry. And then a friend texts me and says, hey, FYI, I went vegetarian. I say, no problem. I will make a mini veggie lasagna for you. Please still come. Another friend calls the next day and says, hey, I just found out I have a gluten allergy. No worries. I will make a gluten-friendly pasta for you, right? Now, as the host of this dinner, I am becoming a restaurant and preparing several different meals according to the people that are attending, right? I've kind of expanded the work that I have to do and ensuring that everyone gets what they need. Whereas if I were to serve a buffet and just put out a selection of various things, people could then build their own dinner. They could have what they want without having to they know their own, what they need and the barriers that they're going to come across and how they can prevent going into those barriers, right? And so relating that buffet example to education, when I'm cooking the lasagna and the veggie lasagna and the gluten-free or gluten-friendly pasta, right? That's differentiated instruction. So I'm looking at my friends and I'm saying, okay, I know this person needs this person needs this person needs this. It's reactive to what people need, right? Whereas the buffet is being very proactive to be able to say, anyone can come to my dinner and anyone is going to be able to eat something. They're not going to leave hungry, right? So that's the very proactive approach. And so the buffet is the UDL approach, right? Being able to kind of put options out there so that the goal is that learners can figure out what their own barriers are to be able to access what they want and need out of the buffet in order to leave feeling kind of well fed, right? And so we want our students to go through our system being able to engage with the teaching and the learning that's happening, picking and selecting and having a say in what's happening so that they're leaving our system as well-informed citizens, right? As well-educated students, as mindful learners. It ties directly to our portrait of a learner, right? If we're doing and putting our UDL practices into place, then our students are leaving successfully kind of being able to check off those areas, the competency areas of our portrait of a learner. And so this year, at our admin retreat, each school sat down and did a UDL check-in of just kind of where they're at in different areas. And they were able to kind of point out glows and grows. Glow being something that we're doing well, we're kind of proficient at it. Grow being an area that we could grow in and learn more about. And then at the first day back this year, every single grade level team, every department got together and also did a very, very similar UDL check-in. And so they also were able to kind of sit down and look through the UDL check-in and see where are they glowing and where to grow. There's two examples on this slide here. The top left, the bottom right, kind of the white background are two of the examples of the pieces of the check-in that our staff and our admin read through and kind of decided, are they emerging in this area? Are they proficient in this area? Are they becoming students in this area? And so they were able to kind of see and decide, self-assess for themselves where they are. What was really nice about this is that it really is tied, it provides really direct kind of input as to what UDL can look like in the classroom. I think sometimes when we hear UDL, we just think choice board. And that is a piece of UDL, but it is not kind of the main component of UDL, right? And so the next couple of slides, if you can go to the next slide, Steve, please. You will see a form. And so a couple of years ago, Assistant Principal Keith Camo and former Assistant Principal Matt Levangie and I took a course together, and it was an educator evaluation course. And in doing that course, the three of us had decided we wanted to do a shared goal so that way we could collaborate together and move forward something that our district was really working on and focusing on. And so we selected a shared goal of UDL and ensuring kind of what does UDL look like in our classrooms. And so we ended up creating this form during that course. And it is, to give credit to Katie Novak, it is adapted from one of her resources. She's really a pioneer in UDL and kind of really voicing UDL, especially within Massachusetts, never mind across the country and beyond. And so this form really allows us to kind of look specifically at areas and make them feel very tangible as to what can UDL look like beyond the choice board. Right. And so the check-ins that we completed this summer and for staff at the start of the school year reflect the components that are on this form. And so this is material that we've seen before. Everyone is aware of kind of these areas, right? And like I said, the areas on this form are very specific and tangible ways to implement UDL. So it's kind of taking these if you look at the guidelines, the considerations, they feel very weighty and lofty and kind of conceptual. This makes it very tangible and direct as to what putting UDL into place can look like in the classroom. And so this slide, the next slide, and then the third slide are all 10 of these areas really break down into the three. If you look at the guidelines officially, there's 3 columns. There's the multiple means of action expression, multiple means of representation, multiple means of engagement. And this hits upon all 3 of those areas. And so it has been interesting to really kind of make this tangible and outline. Here are a few examples of how we could see multiple means of action and expression. Are you using any of them? How are you using them? How's it going? What are areas that we can grow in? And it's been very informative for us. So as an admin team, we have been able to pick focus areas for each school and really be able to go in and use this form to be able to say, yes, we're seeing this, or no, we're not seeing this, but we're seeing this other piece, right? So it kind of allows us to have really focused conversations and some data collection to back up to be able to have those conversations. And so throughout the school year, we'll be using this form to just kind of collect information, to have conversations, and to really push forward those focus areas that each school has selected. And the goal is that the focus areas, we work on them for a month and a half, we become proficient in that area, and we focus on a new area. So we're not talking about getting one focus area for the entire year. We're talking about making some significant progress in a handful of focus areas throughout the entire school year. And so moving forward, we're looking at we're looking at the school-based UDL focus areas. Like I just said, each school has a couple focus areas to really hone in on, and then really having frequent discussions and sharing UDL glows and grows in kind of any capacity that we're able to, whether that's professional development time, staff-based PD time, staff meetings, and team meetings, whenever our staff, whenever we're together, being able to share some of those experiences so that we can learn from each other with them. So that is our UDL goals and focus of how we're focusing in on the UDL practices this year.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Questions?
Um,
Elaine, you want to go first?
So thank you so much for putting this together. This is exactly what I was hoping to learn about, like how the rubber was going to meet the road with UDL, and so grateful for your expertise, having taken that course and developed this plan. This is amazing. When you say each school's going to select a focus area, does that mean one of the 3, like multiple means of engagement or representation or action expression, or does that mean one of the subcategories within that?
Subcategories within it.
Okay.
And so we have that separate to identify which of the 3 kind of is it engagement, is it representation, is it right? But then we want them to get a little bit more detailed of what specifically, how are you going to show that? And so the focus areas are very detailed with regards to what we're wanting to see. So that way we can really work at it, improve it, and then kind of start to build onto it. And so in all reality, we should be becoming proficient because it's a really targeted area that we're focusing in on.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're able to kind of improve it and then change into something else and build upon without forgetting about that first focus area. So it does build up. It is a lot. And just today I was having a conversation with Principal McDonald at Russell Street, and he was saying, like, it just feels like there's a lot happening, but there's connection between everything that we're doing, right? And so the connection between UDL and Portrait of a Learner, it's all there. I think at times we have to remind ourselves of those really explicit connections and showing and sharing those with students so that they can see it too. So that they understand the goal of what we're doing is not for them to memorize content. It's for them to be able to be critical thinkers and contributors once they leave Littleton.
And this is great. So the evaluators, this is more like a learning log rather than.
It's not evaluation.
Yeah.
So, right. So the administrators doing the learning walks and the teachers are both familiar with this rubric. So teachers know what the administrators are looking for during the learning walk, right?
So right now, the form is at varied knowledge levels across the schools. So for example, I will say, I know that one school worked on PD and did PD, and the form was used and handed out and said, oh, hey, look, what you just did is a great example of this on this form. In others, there just hasn't been introduced yet. And so it is a work in progress. People are at varying levels, regardless of the knowledge of UDL is there and the knowledge of the focus of UDL is there, because we did that work over our the first day back.
Oh, this is.
So we worked with our administrators during the summertime. And we had grandiose ideas, and after 3 hours with them, Beth and I looked at each other and both realized that we're losing them. They were overwhelmed. And so we had to think on our feet and come back with, all right, we want to get the recipe right before we have them work with our staff first day back. So we massaged it and we came to an agreement, and after they were in that frame of mind to go into the indicators in a little more detail, they were already starting to see connections, but we lost them because they just were overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So, and they identified 2 focus areas, and then their task was to work with their staff and see what 2 areas that they identified and come together and decide how are we going to select 2 goals a month and develop proficiency in areas. So I think it's a great model, and we're going to see continuous improvement throughout.
Is it still two goals a month, or did you back away from that?
This time 2 goals a month.
Okay.
We're going to wait. I mean, it's like curriculum implementation. We want to make sure that we're moving forward and moving backward. You know, it's tricky at times, but a lot of this is happening in the classrooms, as Beth alluded to. And but what this does is it creates a common set of indicators that everybody understands. And I think we weren't ready for that until this year. It was a lot of conversations, looking at what we're doing in the classrooms, and we're seeing evidence of it. But then it was time to go to this next level. And we're really excited about this.
Are there any schools that are further down the road with this that you've visited, that you've looked at, or have like it almost it kind of feels like you're creating this as you go along, and I'm like, do you have a something you're working towards that you've seen in the classrooms in a school?
Well, I mean, it's interesting with the trainers we've been using. I mean, some of the staff that were into UDL years ago worked with Groton Dunstable School District. They're senior administrators. So we've tapped into those resources, and when they left the district and went on their own, they still had ties to administrators in that district that were still doing this. And we've had the good fortune to have them offer professional development to us as well. So they've been doing it for 3 or 4 more years than we have, but they come to the table with, you know, this is what worked well.
Mhm.
These are some of the things that we had to sit back and think about, and how do we get to that next level? So I think one thing we still need to talk about is, you know, when is that opportunity to do that again and reset the compass movement. So, but again, it's all about not expecting too much and not going too fast. It's a
Yeah.
delicate balance that we need.
I'm trying to understand some of it too, because full disclosure, my kids went to Parker, and when you talk about like the buffet, we were really lucky. But I feel like I've seen another way of doing this. You know, I mean, the project-based work that they do there is every kind of learner is involved. And you know, some of the things that kids are able to access, and so this is a little abstract for me, because the kind of learner I am. I get the project idea. So I'm working to understand how this results in an environment where all those different kinds of learners are involved and are, fulfilled that way.
Yeah.
There are direct tie-ins to project-based learning.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for in here. I was like, here, I'm almost there.
Yeah. And I think maybe an example would help. And I'm gonna hesitate on giving the example because let me have some conversations and see if you
Yeah.
could maybe provide something a bit more explicit firsthand from someone in the future with regards to a really clear, explicit example.
I don't want to put you on the spot. I'm
No,
just
no,
kind of
please.
that understand.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. I think I saw a beautiful example that I think would really help you kind of solidify and more concrete your understanding of it in a 7th grade social studies classroom just this week. So let me just have some conversations and see what we can do to maybe solidify providing that example to you
Yes.
from maybe someone who actually did it.
Oh, fun. Okay.
Instead of kind of seeing it from as an outsider.
Cheers.
Let me have some conversations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have one quick question.
Sure,
I think it's quick, but if it comes out all normal, then my feel free. But I really appreciate the buffet example. We've been hearing about UDL for a couple of years. That was very tangible and understandable. And as a vegetarian, I very much appreciate the need for inclusivity and access. And I guess sort of tied to when we were talking about MAP and you were talking about sort of macro and then micro for your student. We talked about UDL a lot in the macro and sort of serving all students and having sort of learning be accessible. I wonder if or what it looks like when we dig down to the macro in, okay, so let me use the buffet example. If I go to a dinner, but I've never actually tried gluten, am I aware that I have a sensitivity to gluten? So are we supporting the learners individually in knowing their own strengths? I always gravitate to this activity because I feel that's how I can access it. Do I as a learner know that, or does the educator sort of stay aware of the students? Did that make sense?
It makes perfect sense,
Okay.
and both would be the answer,
Okay.
right? And so being able to provide the agency and autonomy as a student to be able to say, this is kind of the direction that I want to go. I want to study this area, right? But also as the teacher, and as you get to know the students better over the year, and you start to realize like, oh, Beanal is consistently going for this type of project, for this type of learning. She's constantly showing me this. Then the teacher is able to kind of guide and support the student to be able to say, hey, why don't you challenge yourself in this other way, right? Or I know that you also can do it over here in this way, or I want you to explore this other topic or this other area. And so it happens both ways, because I think sometimes the students are very aware with regards to making sure that they kind of change things up, because they themselves can get bored with doing the same topic or the same way of doing things.
Yeah.
But also there's a double-edged sword there, right? Because they can get comfortable. And so I think as the teacher's role is to make sure that they do kind of venture out of that zone, proximal zone, that they're going to be stretched a bit. And that's the teacher's role in this environment, to kind of push them into other ways that might challenge them that they're not thinking about.
And it, because it ties to portrait of a learner, and like, obviously we all went to school. I don't remember so much of the content. I learned about who I am as a learner, and that's a powerful thing to come out of it too. Even now with adults and professional work, the people that know themselves and their strengths and bring that to it, I think are sort of the most successful. And so it's great to hear that that's something that's come up too. I think certainly the diversifying the different types of access and challenging students, but also if a student has a particular strength and accessing something a certain way, are they aware of that? And so that they can know that about themselves.
Exactly. And I think kind of highlighting that too, right? Because I think building confidence
Yeah.
in yourself, period, right? Just in yourself individually, but then also as a learner.
Yeah.
I think is really important. I think this allows us to do that in a really supportive environment.
Yeah.
And it's an awesome thing when your kid comes home. Mr. So-and-so said, I have to do it this way. Even I know you said it, and then I tried it. And I'm okay with it. Like there's moments at home that they do happen at home, and you go like, oh.
Yeah. And you don't say I told you so, but in your head
but
you might be saying it.
But that sounds great. I am glad you gave that a shot.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think that builds in like the metacognition piece too, and the reflective piece, right? Of how am I learning this? What is my strength as a learner? And I think giving that time and building that time in is as valuable as the actual project or lesson,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
right? Like, what did I learn from doing this? And how did I interact with others while doing it? And how can I improve upon that moving forward? And I think that's a piece that is, I think for many years was neglected. It was
Right.
just pushed off to the side. And now it really, I think we know the benefits of it. And so trying to build that time in is really important and happening more frequently.
Bill's lifelong learners.
Exactly. Yeah.
More. Well, no, just to wrap it up,
Please.
to wrap it up.
Of course.
I know, you always think I'm launching into another.
You are, fine.
So this is a high priority for the district, so I think we'd love to hear about it again, like sort of mid-cycle to find out, you know, what are the goals that the schools have chosen, how is it going? You know, what are their action steps for the rest of the year? So I was kind of wondering when in the school year you think you might be ready with that kind of information.
I think giving us a couple of months to try and establish that first focus area, set up a second focus area, get going. I think we can also compare it, because the longer we wait, the more information we'll have, hopefully,
Right.
ideally, right? But I also don't want to wait too long. And so I guess the other thing that's kind of running through the back of my mind, I also don't want to overload an agenda. And so kind of looking at when it makes sense to come back and provide that information so it can really be thoughtful and maybe our principals can really kind of share the nitty gritty of what they've done, the action steps they've taken and what they saw work and what they had to adjust. So I would say give us a couple months, maybe just after the new year in January.
Yeah.
We could provide something.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously, yeah, we would put it into an already light schedule so
Yeah.
that we're not creating long meetings, but yeah,
Never
like,
have meetings.
no. So I think it would be great to revisit it like mid-year and then at the end of the year, see how the initiative turned out. I think this is a fantastic way to take the pulse of how UDL is being implemented in the schools. And hear more about it.
Excellent
Thank you very much.
presentation, great dialogue, great questions. Well done. Beth is also coaching an undefeated middle school. She's got a lot on her plate.
I did say that, I was like, we're undefeated right now. We're 2-0 for anyone that actually wants.
Oh.
They're going really hard at rock, so, yes.
Awesome. Field hockey is awesome. Go you.
It's, yeah, totally a highlight. I mean, there's a lot of highlights in my job, but I really love that part.
My high school team, the girls would always challenge the football team and the football team wouldn't play them because they would get run into the ground.
Yeah, it takes a lot of effort, so it's good, yeah.
All right, the last now we're all here tonight, the last presentation, which is the financial update. I'm willing to bet this is the only presentation that goes under the allotted time.
That's 5 minutes is usually a lot different than my 5 minutes, so.
Oh, no.
I don't really, you want me to really stretch it?
As a habit, we don't budget enough time and we
Yeah.
overload our agendas and we are thankful that the staff and the administration are willing to put the time in. So thank you. Steve?
All right, so the budget report, year-to-date budget report is in your packet. I'm glad to answer questions. I would like to take just a minute and put a little bit of context behind some of the numbers that are reported here, specifically the last column, which is the percentage used. And just by way of explanation, if you look at regular education and special education and other instruction, you notice those are significantly behind some of the other cost centers as far as the percentage used. Just in the way of context, these 3 cost centers are really cost centers that have to do with teachers and students once school starts. So we don't start incurring those costs in those cost centers really until school starts. And so that starts in September. So and then the teachers' regular education and special education salaries, if you recall from prior years, teachers had the option to spread those payments out over 26 payments and not 21. So those salaries are always less in the reporting because we save it and we pay it out as a lump sum in the summer. So they get summer salary. So that put that into a little bit of context, why those percentages are a little bit lower than some of the other cost centers. The other cost centers are more year-round cost centers. Facilities and maintenance, we work all summer. We have custodians who work all summer. School administration is principals and their staff and assistant principals, they work all summer. System administration is myself, the superintendent's office, all of our staff, we work all summer. So those expenses really started at the beginning of the year, which is July. So I just wanted to explain that just so people looked at the percentages and say, hey, how come they're so low? That's why. So be glad to answer questions and provide additional information if so desired.
Questions for anybody?
Clear as always.
Yeah, nothing, there's nothing of concern. We have nothing of concern at this point in time, projected to hit the budget this year. So I think we're gonna, again, it's still mid-September. I think barring anything really major happening, I think we'll have another good year financially.
Always nice to hear.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, got
Thank you,
two articles of old business. First of which is an update on the school committee mission statement. So last meeting, we reviewed one version, a second version, and there was a suggested edit that came live during the meeting. So hopefully everyone had a chance to look this over. I'd like to propose that we review the draft 2 with the proposed edit. I'll read it again and then offer discussion. So the mission of the Littleton School Committee is to ensure that every student is supported in reaching their highest potential through a commitment to continuous improvement. We achieve this by setting clear policies to provide strong governance and support equitable practices, preparing and managing a responsible school department budget that aligns resources with student needs, and providing thoughtful evaluation and guidance to the superintendent. Together with the community, we strive to prepare all students to be critical thinkers who are engaged citizens and lifelong learners. Having read that, does the school committee feel that we wish to entertain any other version of a mission statement or have any other proposed edits? There wasn't a lot of chatter on this over the past couple of weeks, so that's perfectly okay. It might mean that we settled on this as a group, but we wanted to give everyone a chance to think about it before we adopted it. Sounds like we're good, or we're tired, but sounds like we're good. We had 2 weeks.
I'm good.
All right, I would like to motion that the school committee adopts the mission statement as presented.
Second.
Beautiful. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Great. That's something that came out of our summer workshop.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Good
We can put
job.
that on top of our agendas from now
We
on.
will.
Excellent.
Perfect.
And then our next area of new business, which will be constant until we get to town meeting, is an update on the advocacy for a Shaker Lane school project. Ellie, would you like to?
I'll start very quickly. We did meet with the Council on Aging a couple of days ago. We had a breakfast. Special thanks to Rotary for sponsoring that breakfast. And we had a great opportunity to update not only some of our senior citizens in town, but we opened it up to the community. So it was well received. Beth and Lynn were with me, and Alex and Dorothy and Steve Benuti. I really want to give a shout out to Steve Benuti because he has spent so much time on this project, and every time I give him a call, hey, can you come and help me do this presentation? He's always there, and you know, he's a busy guy, and for him to commit the amount of time he does to this building project is just really appreciated. We did meet with Rotary. Dorothy, Alex, and I went to Rotary. I hope they invite me back after I did my presentation, and you know, it was great to update them as well. And it was well received, but you know, we want to, when we're going out to these different entities, you know, we want to make sure that we're presenting the information and we respect the decisions that they make. But here are your choices. Very clearly, the first choice, building a new school, is going to be better on your wallet. And if we don't do that and take a chance, it's probably not going to turn out very well in the long run. It's going to cost significantly more money. And it's going to be probably 20 years before you would see a new school being built. School built in 59, and we would be tacking on 20 more years is, I mean, boy, that's really, borrowed time. Brings new meaning to working on borrowed time. So things are going well. Yes, for Littleton is doing a wonderful job. We finally were able to work with Dave Cartoonen, put together 9 separate smaller videos and 1 larger video. And we were still working some kinks out today, but they're already on LCTV. We're going to start playing on our school televisions as well. I believe the library is going to be rolling them, Council on Aging. And I'm just looking to you as a school committee now in terms of what kind of advocacy can you do? How can I help you? I mean, I can, as soon as we figure out how to send all those pillars to you, I can do that if they're going to be useful to you. But I don't want to send you information that isn't going to be useful. So if you like those 9 pillars, if you have a group you can send them to, or you're on social media, that might be a good idea to not flood the market, but get it out there because they tell the story. And I think that's really important at this point in time. What I keep telling people is never assume that they know about this project. That's a huge mistake. You have to go back, you have to start at feasibility study and go through to schematic design and then moving into design. Because some people, and rightly so, they're not with us all the time. They don't understand all the things that we've done to make this project work. Again, I'm a firm believer if you're comfortable knocking on doors and talking to them. I sent you that 3-page summary of the costs. I know one of the Yes for Littleton is using that. People are using that quite a bit. So this is our last opportunity. It's October 28th. It's going to be here before we know it, and we need to get that word out. We're not unlike any other community. People are busy. Most people, both people are working, and they have children. They're out with athletics and other opportunities for their children, and it's really hard to capture that time with them. But we need to, keep doing what we're doing. And if you're out on a soccer field and, you feel like you're comfortable doing it, talk to people about the project. And the more we can get this word out, the more conversations we keep going and have other people talk about it, the greater opportunity that we're going to have a knowledgeable community to be able to make decisions with good information. That's what we're looking.
The pillars thing, what are
There are videos on all aspects of the building process. So we have one. We've cut them down into about 2-minute segments,
okay.
and our larger video is about 9 minutes. What we're trying to do is inject information within a 2-minute period, capture people's
Suitable
interest.
amount of time. Why don't you
Yeah.
send them to us? I mean, it doesn't
Okay.
hurt to send them to us, and that
Yeah.
way you can view them and.
Yeah, if you send us
Use them.
URLs.
And if you want us to start playing them during the school committee meeting for 4 minutes or whatever, we can do that as well. I mean, that's up to you. You know, I don't want
So what
to
I'll
cut into
do
our
is,
meeting.
There's one up on School Now. School Now,
Yeah, for the 9-minute videos up on School Now.
Great.
And Alex and I are going to be loading a couple of videos a week on School Now, just to make sure we get through the 9 before the town meeting.
so we do have, so I'm not gonna call it canvassing because people don't like to canvass and they don't like to door knock. But we're starting with a small group of people interested in going out and sharing information. I'm calling it neighbor to neighbor. And I'm working on a neighbor to neighbor campaign. I am able to, what they call cut turf. So I am able to create lists of anyone who's interested in talking to their neighbors about this. And Annalise has worked with the teachers union to create materials that we can hand out when we do that.
That's awesome.
So we have that actually moving out. I'm going to hold kind of a training on October 2nd, and my first shot is as Saturday the 4th at Starbucks at 10:30. Anyone who wants to help out. I will have lists that of people that they can talk to, some materials that they can use to talk to them. And we're going to focus on people here in town, talking to people in their neighborhood. And just like who on your street is probably has come to town meeting, has voted in a municipal election. We can identify them and suggest that you just walk 2 doors down and talk to your neighbor one afternoon. And take some material, talk to them. So it's canvassing is scary. Door knocking is scary. Even phone banking has that professionals town. And this is all about us talking to the people that we know in town and asking them, hey, have you heard about Shaker Lane? Do you have any questions about it? I mean, I got to do that in gardening the other day because my neighbor who lives behind me always talks to me and she goes, I don't know about this 2.5 override. I said, well, it's not a 2.5 override, Ann. It's actually a debt exclusion. Oh, is it? Huge conversation. And that was neighbor to neighbor.
That's great.
So this is, the more we can encourage people to do that, just that simple. So we're on it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's great.
I think there's a lot of good work going on. Sean's not here, but he's pretty active in the process. And for those that might be listening, I don't want to say we need your help, but we would gladly accept your help. I think the key here is just a lot of intentional conversations between now and town meeting. It's not difficult to talk to people that you already know. Stress the importance of participating in town government, right? You should go to town meeting. You should show up to town meeting as an informed voter. And then what I've taken the strategy is just sharing with those folks how I feel about it and seeing if they have any questions about the project. If they're like, oh, Justin, you're a yes, I'm a yes, then I'll save my breath. But if they have questions like your neighbor did, just sharing more details and letting, the idea there is we just want great participation. We want people to feel informed, and I think the information speaks for itself and we should have a favorable result. But it is important that we get our extended networks to come to town meeting, right? That's going to be the key to this thing.
And there will be childcare services provided
Fantastic.
as well.
Yeah, do you have details on that yet?
I'm working with one of the town employees to work with our National Honor Society advisors, get that cooking. I have to be a little cautious here because there's going to be some financial exchange. So I have to careful with how involved I am in this. But,
Do you know if Park and Rec is going to be involved in that at all?
No.
Like programming?
We have Annalise on the line.
Okay.
Question,
Sure.
if you don't mind.
Yeah. Why don't I wrap up our conversation on it and then I'll just move to interested citizens and
I just didn't know.
I'll
if you were
take her as an
talking.
interested citizen. Since we typically don't have the public participate in our discussions. Do we have, Annalise, we're gonna get to you. Anyone else have anything to add on that? If not, that's fine, we'll move right in. Okay, so I'll close all the old business. And we'll move into our second opportunity for interested citizens. Perhaps we have someone who's interested in speaking.
We may.
Okay, speak just name and address for the record.
Of course. Hello, Annalise Tabor, 291 Goldsmith.
Just-
Wait a minute,
Annalise,
it's
one
volume,
second,
not
please. I'm
volume.
just waiting for the volume to be turned up.
Oh, are we good?
Now we can hear you fine.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I hear you now.
Okay, sorry, I jumped the gun. Annalise Tabor, 291 Goldsmith. I am the chair of the Yes for Littleton Ballot Question Committee, which is in support of a new Shaker Lane school. Sorry for, jumping the gun, trying to get into your conversation. I'm just very excited about this project, so. I thank you again just for your advocacy, for talking about it, for your continued work on it, because I know this whole campaign is not easy for any of us. So I appreciate just the continued discussion, both at the official meetings and in the community. Your voices are stronger than most, especially when it comes to, education, as the school committee. So, I thank you for the conversations you've had and that you will continue to have. I wanted to quickly promote a couple events that we're having. So both my group, Yes for Littleton, and the Shaker Lane School Building Committee. So I'm going to list them in order of date for anybody who's taking notes. So September 29th, which is a Monday, there is a community forum at 6 o'clock at Shaker Lane School. Then the following night, September 30th, which is a Tuesday, is a Yes for Littleton community meeting, and that is at 7 p.m. in the Murray Room downstairs at the library. And then the next meeting after that looks like, I'm doing some math here. So then we will be at Oktoberfest, which is October 4th, from 11 to 5, and that's at 36 King. And then after that, the next event is October 14th. That is another Yes for Littleton community meeting. That will be our last meeting. And so that is October 14th, 7 o'clock, Reuben Hoare Library, Murray Room. And then the next after that is October 18th, is another community forum hosted by the Shaker Lane School Building Committee. And that is a Saturday. And that'll be at 4 o'clock at the Center on Shattuck. And then for those who are still paying attention, the final event on the calendar is the final tour of Shaker Lane School and info session, which is a week before the vote. It's October 21st. It's at 6:30 and it's at Shaker Lane School. And we will also be at Trunk or Treat. Yes for Littleton will be at Trunk or Treat. So we're excited for that. And the final thing I have is piggybacking on what Dr. Clenchey was just saying. So the childcare at town meeting. So part of what we're offering is the cafeteria in addition to the gym. So the cafeteria will have another moderator, we'll have clickers for voting, we'll have a mic, we'll have everything that you need. But we're welcoming young families with their children to be, obviously they could be in either space, but we're sort of welcoming them to the cafeteria as, a space where your kids could kind of, be a little more relaxed. And we're hoping to maybe set up a few little activities so that, parents can keep an eyeball on their kids, but their kids can get their wiggles out. So that's, for families that are listening, we have been really working hard on trying to figure out the best way to make this work for families because we need all the votes we can get. So we need, moms and dads, we need everybody. So, and the Shaker Lane vote will be Article 1, which is great. So that'll be first up right after the consent agenda, which usually goes very quickly. So we are hoping to get people out of town meeting, hopefully before 8 o'clock. We are going to do our very best. So just, wanted to reiterate that we are thinking about all the young families, and we're thinking about, babies, the elderly people in the community who don't want to be out super late either. So yeah, so that's all I've got. I just wanted to give a quick update. And we are in the home stretch, so it's very exciting.
Annalise, we have one question. Elaine, we have a question for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I was, right before you called in, we were starting to talk about the advocacy efforts and the canvassing. And I know that you've created a lot of assets that people can use that are trying to spread the word in the community. So could you describe what those are and where people can find them?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That's a great question. I appreciate your teeing me off there. So everything is available on yesforlittleton.org, which is the sort of campaign website. And I have on the resources page, so it's yesforlittleton.org/resources. I have what's called the Yes Kit, and that has videos, flyers, it has our endorsements, it has contact info for me and the group in general. And it's got social media posts, it's got lots of things that you can use to advocate however it is that you want to do so. And we are also, available, reach out via the contact form or however, and, we're happy to work with you if you'd like to help us advocate.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other interested citizens? Okay. I'll say that I can make that, mid-October Saturday, public forum. I can't, however, make the Monday one that's coming up. I think it's this coming Monday. So it would be great to have at least a school committee representative there. So if someone can make it, that would be great.
On the
The 29th,
29th Monday.
Beano's out. Okay, just, Elena, you can check your schedule and maybe you
Yeah.
can talk to Shauna if you're not able to make it. All right, we'll roll through subcommittee reports. Rather quickly, maybe. First will be, TMBT. Sean's not here, and I think I don't know if you would have anything else to add, off Shaker Lane topic, but we'll just wait to hear from him next meeting. Sure about that. Fair enough. Budget subcommittee reports that we received communication from the town, so hard to believe the budget cycle process is getting ready to be in full swing. We have a budget subcommittee meeting not posted, scheduled for
Wednesday, October 1st, 4:00.
thank you, and we will post that because
Yep.
those are posted meetings, so we'll make sure that that gets out. So it'll be our first crack at some capital projects, some preliminary budget review information. Policy subcommittee,
We met this afternoon to make a plan. We have our next 3 meetings planned, October, November, and December. Get ready for a lot of policies coming your way. For you to review.
welcome up.
We have plans for how many to go through with each meeting and
Great,
just get her done.
sounds good. Listed as a Shaker Lane Building Committee update, I think we've probably covered that. Yep, we're good. All right, before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I'll just announce that our next school committee meeting is October 9th, 2025, same time, 7 o'clock, same place. Littleton Police Station Community Room. And we've covered it, but October 28th is town meeting, followed by the ballot on November 1st. 2-part process.
And I'd like to thank Dorothy for coming out tonight. I said, go home, Dorothy. and
Last
she
meeting.
just wanted to be part of the team tonight. More time, so.
Thank you, Dorothy. When I walked in today, I was kind of surprised to see you here, and I was like, oh, maybe she'll just be back next year too. But please find something else to do.
Of course, it's the longest meeting.
Sorry.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. And Alex, we look forward to working with you. I'll leave you out,
Yeah,
okay?
it's all covered.
Yeah. If there's no other new business, old business before the school committee, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Move that we adjourn.
A
Moved
second.
by Elaine, seconded by Janine. All those in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We have adjourned.